It was back in 2011 that I first experienced a modern Persona game. I was in college and therefore I had a lot of free time. Devil Survivor 2 just came out, in Japan at least, but I was really itching to play a new Megaten game, so I tried to scratch that itch with the third Persona game. I'm of course talking about Persona 2 Eternal Punishment. I chose it because I like the title. I don't know, just saying it feels good. Eternal Punishment. I didn't play it for that long though, I didn't really like it. But right after that, I tried the actual third Persona game, re-released on the PSP as Persona 3 Portable, or P3P in short. Now this is more like it, I had a lovely time. This is definitely a Megaten game, but it had its own unique twist. It has a style and vibe very different from mainline Megaten games. Much more down to earth, but still very anime. It's also a mix of dungeon crawling and a dating sim which worked somehow. The music was something else too. A bit of pop, jazz, rock, and even vocals. It's really good. Plus, I shared this experience with a young cousin of mine. We were sharing my PSP, we had our own saves, and we would watch each other play. I even remember trying to convince him to try a harder difficulty setting. Go from beginner to easy. I failed. But I had good memories of that time. He has since moved away to another country and that's a premonition it seems. Although I continued for a bit more, Persona 3 Portable was left unfinished for me. I think I was about 80% through. Since then, I've played other Megaten games and I've finished most of what I tried, like Devil Survivor 2 later that year, Persona 4 on the PS2, Shin Megami Tensei 4 in the Apocalypse, even Persona Q on the 3DS. I even borrowed the PlayStation 4 just to play Persona 5 Royal. This was back when it was yet to be ported to other systems. And I can see why Persona 5 was so successful too. Everything about it is so smooth. It oozes style like a sliced artery. Still, it's been over 12 years that I haven't touched Persona 3 at all. And then this snuck up on me.
Power that takes many forms, might even prove to be your salvation, depending on where you end up.
Atlus has learned a lot from all the Persona games they've made it seems. I am so sold on this one. Welcome one and all to Vivi's Doodled World. Let me take you on a journey to Persona 3 Reload. I gotta admit though, I barely remember anything about this game, so I likely will miss a lot of differences compared to the original. So instead of just comparing it to the past, I'm gonna criticize the mechanics in the remake. Okay, first off, we have to choose a difficulty setting. There's Games Journalist, Easy, Normal, Hard, and Merciless. I'm not masochistic enough for that, so I'm just gonna go for Hard. I want to finish the game in this lifetime, plus I have to make the video. Wait, I think there's something missing. We don't get to choose our character's gender. We're stuck with the blue-haired emo guy, I guess, but it doesn't matter. I picked male in P3P too. In the opening cutscene, we're also told we have 1 year. For me, that's quite a jump. I came from Devil Survivor games and they give you 1 week in that. The game starts with our main character getting off a train. It's late, and right as midnight comes, the atmosphere changes. It is way too quiet and the ambient moonlight has turned a green hue. This is really weird. There are also bloodstains on the ground and standing coffins. Ah well, let's go to our dorm. Upon entering the dorm, we're greeted by a mysterious boy. He offers us a contract stating we'll take full responsibility for our actions. And it's here that we enter our main character's name. Now, what do I enter here? Yeah, I got it. This is to honor my little cousin with whom I played Persona 3 Portable with. For the given name, he used his initials and he asked me for a badass surname. So, it came to be that his character was named JC Badass. He absolutely loved my decision back then. With the contract signed, the young boy disappears, but then a teenage girl with a gun spots us. Then the atmosphere just returns to normal. It's here that we're introduced to 2 of our dorm mates, Yukari in the pink sweater and the much more elegant Mitsuru. As for the gun, we'll learn more about that later. After all that, we just go to bed because school starts tomorrow. We are accompanied by Yukari to our new school. We're a sophomore at Gekkoukan High, a school that sits on the man-made Tatsumi Port Island. You know, I never noticed from the PSP port that the way we get there is through a long-ass train line. We're given a chance to explore once inside the school, and it looks a lot better. Now there are plenty of students going around. My reference point is the PSP game. It just had a static overhead view of the area, and we interact with a cursor instead of walking around. But I did check out the PS2 original. The hallways were very wide and sparse in comparison to now. Plus, there were barely any NPCs around. Looks like a ghost town in comparison. And another change is the 3D character models. They no longer have big heads. They're now full-scale human models like in than Persona 5. Well, anime models, but you get what I mean. Even though there seems to be a lot of people around, we can only talk to some NPCs. We'll know by the icons above their heads. I like this how these icons gray out when you've already viewed what they'll say. The first few days are uneventful. We just go to school, go back to the dorm, and go to bed. We're also introduced to Junpei, a classmate of ours and a friend of Yukari. He takes the time to welcome us properly and shows us around town. Thus, we've gained a new friend. Back at the dorm, we meet Shuji Ikutsuki, the chairman of Gekkoukan High. I think this is a good time to talk about the voice acting in this game. A lot of the scenes are fully voiced, and I have to say, it is fantastic. There's hardly anybody that sounds unrealistic. Nearly everyone has a new voice actor too, and this is despite the original game already having pretty good voices. The new ones are familiar, but better. And that includes Ikutsuki, except his original voice was very cheesy and unnatural. Easily one of the worst performances then. Later that night, we also have a dream. Suddenly we're inside a moving elevator fully clad in blue velvet. This is Igor and the Velvet Room. They're recurring elements in the Persona series. He knows of the contract we signed, but his true purpose will be expanded upon later. On the night of April 9th is when business starts picking up. Midnight arrives and the ambiance turns an ominous green again, and we're woken to a crisis. It seems a huge threat is approaching the dorm, and Yukari tells us to run to safety. So to the rooftops we go. She also gives us a short sword. I smell our first fight. On the roof, we're ambushed by a freaky monster. It's a blob grafted with numerous arms and swords. Suddenly, Yukari takes out her gun and points it to her own head. Whatever she was trying to do, she couldn't do it. But it seems that thing is only after her, until a voice inside her head told us to do this.
I am thou, thou art I. From the sea of thy soul I come. I am Orpheus, master of strings.
The first time I witnessed this, I had so many questions. Why did we shoot ourselves, and why did Harpist come out? Why did it transform? The scene is undeniably cool, sure, but also really confusing. The monster's slain by our summon and Yukari saved, but we're not out of the shadows just yet. Get it? Shadows? Two smaller blobs splinter off and come after us. Time for a first fight. We can do normal attacks, and we can also try out the Persona command because I already know what it does actually. It lets us cast fire magic. We win without taking much damage, but we get knocked out because plot. That was the power of Persona, a manifestation of one's inner self. The environmental shift that occurs at midnight is called the Dark Hour, a hidden part of the daily cycle that only a select few can experience. Everyone else just turns into a coffin. The creature we just fought is a shadow, monsters that appear only during the Dark Hour, and they're hostile towards life. We can use our personas to fight back. But summoning personas require great focus and determination, and this is where the gun, called Evokers, come in. The very act of shooting yourself is proof of your determination. When days pass, we see the date move through this screen here, and this is how we know that we've been out for one whole week. When we awaken, we just go back to school the next day. We'll be bombarded with several exposition scenes here, and I think it's a good time to talk about one of my favorite features in this game, the auto text feature. So you know how scenes can have voiceovers? Well, in most other JRPGs, you have to manually go to the next line of dialogue by pushing a button. But this game has auto text, and it's auto text done right. The skip is synced with the endpoint of the voiceovers. Auto text is present in Shin Megami Tensei 5 as well, but there's like a 5-second pause between the voiceover ending and the skip. Doesn't make the flow of the conversations natural. Why even have it on then? In this game, auto text is perfect for letting conversations flow naturally, at least ones that are fully voiced. The Iwatodai dorm is actually a special place where Persona users gather, and they have an official name, the Specialized Extracurricular Execution Squad, or SEES for short. There are currently 4 members: Yukari, who we're already familiar with, Mitsuru's the senior figure of SEES, and then there's Akihiko, another upperclassman. I'll explore his character more later, but I do want to mention that his voice work is quite different from the original. He actually sounds flatter in tone, but maybe that's just me. We're officially invited to the team and we receive our very own evoker. Persona 4 and 5 didn't need a summoning tool, so this is unique to Persona 3. We also receive our first social link. I'll explain this later because this is different from the normal ones. On April 19th, we get a new dorm mate. It's Junpei. Turns out he's a Persona user as recently discovered by Akihiko. He just joins the group out of nowhere. This kinda feels like we're watching a show mid-season. Junpei's excited at least. He'll need it cause we'll be going into the game's dungeon the very next night. So on April 20th, just before midnight, the C's team heads for the school. At the strike of 12 AM, the night sky turns green, and the entire structure of the school transforms into the game's main dungeon, a mysterious tower whose height and architecture defy physics. This is Tartarus, and it's the team's objective to explore and reach the top, in hopes of discovering how to end the Dark Hour for good. Our first Tartarus trip is just a tutorial. Although Mitsuru and Akihiko have battle experience, only the sophomores are going in. Mitsuru is focused on helping us navigate, while Akihiko is injured from the dorm crisis. We are also made the leader. I mean, we're always the leader in Shin Megami Tensei games, so inside the dungeon proper, I can see it's been spruced up quite a bit from the original. It feels much bigger in scale because now we have an over-the-shoulder perspective rather than a bird's-eye view one. Gameplay-wise, Tartarus is composed of floors. Each one is like a maze, but it's all procedurally generated. The layout changes the next day. In its halls await shadows for us to fight, so let's talk about combat. One design decision I really like from Persona 5 is the shortcut style commands. Instead of a menu where we have to navigate commands with the D-pad first, orders are mapped to a single button. For example, basic attacks are mapped to the A button. Oh yeah, I'm using a controller. To switch targets, we press left and right on the D-pad. And if we want to use an item, we press X. We then go to a menu to select an item we can use. When I first experienced this, I thought it was just a stylistic choice, the game wanting to be unique and all, but after I finished Persona 5, I later played another turn-based JRPG, Trails of Cold Steel. You know what I realized? I save a lot of time and effort not having to navigate through a menu for basic orders. And I believe I know why. Whenever you're faced with a menu, you're always thinking about what's currently selected, so you have to process that first in your head. With the shortcuts, instead of looking at the menu to select magic, you can press a single button that will reliably do that command. I'm not sure if this is the first turn-based RPG to have this, but I am so glad it's here. Hitting enemy weaknesses has always been very important in the Megaten series because it gives various benefits on top of extra damage. In this game, that takes the form of one more. And it's really simple. We get an extra turn every time we knock down an enemy. We do that by hitting a weakness or by scoring critical hits. And there's no limit to how many one mores we can get in a row. A single character can knock down 5 enemies one at a time in a single turn. The only limitation is we can't knock down an enemy that's already knocked down. Of course, our own characters has their own weaknesses, so enemies can also benefit from one more. Knocking down enemies will usually require magic, which consumes SP, but let me tell you, it is totally worth it. Once all enemies are knocked down, it's time to execute an all-out attack. A flashy charge where our entire party delivers a beatdown inside a cartoon cloud. It deals heavy damage that will never fail, it can't miss, and it can't be blocked in any way. I always aim for an AOA, that's all-out attack in short, but not because of the damage. After winning a fight, we can trigger Shuffle Time, cards are presented to us that offer extra rewards from extra experience, healing, bonus cash, and like in the tutorial, new personas. Shuffle Time normally has a random chance of triggering, but it is guaranteed when we finish an enemy with an all-out attack. Shuffle Time's been changed though. In the original, we're shown our options, then they're set face down and shuffled in some way. We can still use proper timing or observation to help us get the card we want. In the remake, however, all the cards stay face up and we can just pick. I personally am not sure which one I prefer. I mean, is it really shuffle time if there's no shuffle? So that new persona we got is Apsaras from Hindu mythology. The use of multiple personas is exclusive to our main character. It's called the power of the wild card. This makes us the most versatile character in the entire game. We witness our teammates summon their own personas for the first time. Junpei's persona is Hermes, Herald of the Olympian Gods. His build is that of a physical attacker, and he's also the only ally we have that'll learn all 3 physical attack types later. In the early game, he's also a useful fire magic user. Yukari's persona is Io, another figure from Greek mythology. She wields a bow that defaults as a pierce attack, but her strengths are more in healing and wind magic. We're also taught how to initiate combat advantage. Shadows in the overworld act like sentries with a limited patrol range. Attacking them initiates combat, but how we attack them matters. If we hit them from behind, we get combat advantage, letting us act first. This mechanic actually makes regular encounters more manageable in higher difficulty settings. We can start most of the fights in the game with an advantage. On the other hand, however, shadows can also swipe at us and then they get combat advantage. In higher difficulty settings where we take more damage, this can be a death sentence. Now, I do want to comment on the shadows too. In all previous Megaten games I've played, I was fighting demons, so I was kinda disappointed when I discovered that our enemies here are instead shadows. That means we can neither talk to them or recruit them. The demons in this game are relegated to personas. It's only on Persona 5 that they brought them back as regular enemies. We're introduced to a new feature, this unique looking treasure chest. They contain high value items, but unlike regular treasure chests, these are locked. We have to use Twilight fragments to open them. We found one earlier in our bed, so this one's a freebie. And that's our intro to Tartarus. We'll be coming back here often because it's integral to the plot. Plus, it's pretty much the only way to level up. More features will get introduced as we progress through the game as well. Also note that in-game lore says the Dark Hour lasts, well, an hour, but the game doesn't actually impose a time limit on us. We can linger for as long as we want inside Tartarus. For now, we're back to living a normal life. A classmate named Kenji invites us to ramen. So get this, at first I thought this guy would eventually become a party member. He has his own portrait and all like Junpei, implying that he's important. But he's not that important, he's actually a social link. Alright, let's get into this. The dungeon, exploration, combat, that's expected of a Megami Tensei game. But that's actually only half of Persona 3. The other half is this, the social life. It's sorta like a dating sim but without much dating. Social links are bonds that we develop with other people. Each of them are tied to a specific major arcana from cartomancy. Yeah, I should have mentioned earlier that arcanas play a part in this game. Instead of demon races, personas have arcanas. Shadows also have them, and we can actually tell which arcana they have by the mask they're wearing. It's purely cosmetic though. Earlier, we received the social link of the full arcana with the Cease team, and Kenji is our magician arcana social link. All of them start at rank 1 and max out at rank 10. We rank them up by bonding with the person. We'll also be told if bonding will result in a rank up whenever it says, I might grow closer with them soon. If it doesn't, we need to spend more time with them first. Rank up events always play a scene that lets us know more about the other person. For example, Kenji here reveals he's into older women, and he has an eye on a teacher. And there's been a change in the remake. These scenes are now fully voiced, and they're not bad. I should note as well that during social link bonds, our responses do matter. For example, if we tell Kenji here we also like older women, he'll be quite pleased and we'll get this musical note flourish. This is important, it denotes that we're getting closer to the person, and it can help us progress through the social link more quickly. We'll get a lot more social links as the game goes on. It takes time to reveal each one's full story though, and they might be hit or miss depending on your taste. Not to worry, I'll tell every single one's story as we receive them, plus I'll give them a score. Spoilers ahead obviously, although you are watching a full playthrough, so I'm guessing that's not really an issue for you. Okay, Kenji's storyline revolves around courting one of the teachers at school, all the while keeping this forbidden relationship secret. The interactions are actually quite fun while he's dating the teacher, but the ending is kinda rushed. I'm not satisfied with it, so I'm giving it a 6 out of 10. Let me also explain social stats. We have 3 in total: charm, courage, and academics. All of them start at level 1 and max out at 6. Certain levels are required to unlock social links. For example, we can't bond with Yukari unless we have level 6 charm. How do we level them up? Well, we get experience from various activities around town. Some shops offer other benefits. For example, the cafe at Polonium Mall allows us to work part-time on certain days. This gives us some bonus cash along with social stat experience. Polonium Mall is also where our weapon and item shops are located. We source weapons and armor from the police of all places. There's this one officer there that just believes we're using them for something important. And these are actual weapons too, not like in Persona 5 where we buy toys. Visiting each shop at least once is a good idea because of a new function. We can now receive text messages. It's updated whenever time passes and it lets us know of any special events or changes, like shop discounts or busy days for more part-time pay. It's also a shortcut. Replying to the messages takes us right to the location of the shop or NPC. It's a good idea to make a habit of checking our texts. Finally, we have the network functionality. It's a statistics screen of sorts that lets us know what other players decided to do that day. There's also other info like everyone's average level and the floor they've reached in Tartarus. Although from my experience, I feel like the average level is kinda off. I was under-leveled the majority of the time. While exploring, I found a Twilight fragment by the school printing room and by the statues in the school lobby. I wonder if this is how we get them. During evenings, we have fewer social options. Some shops are closed, but some are also open at night only, like the Escapade nightclub, although we can't enter yet because we don't have enough courage. I'm also pretty sure that the nighttime music is a completely new track, and I like it quite a lot. It gives color to our night. Speaking of the music, the entire soundtrack was also remade, and the vocalist is different too. I actually didn't like the activity I did last night. I want to try something else. This is where a new feature can come in useful: Rewind. It allows us to go back up to 4 free time sections in the game and change our actions. This only works one way though, so it's best to save before doing a rewind. On April 23rd, we can join the track team. I thought this was a chance to raise a stat, but it's actually a social link. We meet 2 new NPCs with portraits, Kazushi and Yuko. Kazushi is our Chariot Arcana social link. Throughout our time with him, we'll discover his motivation for running track. He'll discover that he's got a knee injury, but he doesn't want to bother anybody about it. The story of this social link kinda drags towards an ending that's delivered poorly in my opinion. I give this one a 3 out of 10. The graphical fidelity in this game is really nothing special. I mean, I don't have the best computer that can show it off anyway, but it's certainly no Red Dead Redemption. It's not even a Guilty Gear Strive. But Persona 5 will look good for years to come, and so will this game, and that's because style matters more. Look at this menu, man. It's not as flashy as Persona 5, but that's by design. P5 has a much more in-your-face theatrical showmanship style. We feel that right away just from the intro. Persona 3, on the other hand, went for a cool blue watery theme, and you see it everywhere. A lot of puddle animations I noticed. Here it is in day transitions, and during social link intros. Or how about in all-out attacks? I also like this, check this out. NPCs, when viewed from further out, are displayed as foggy silhouettes, but as we get closer to them, they slowly become more recognizable. It is a great way to handle crowds. There are a few vending machines around town, and they have some dirt cheap SP recovery items, but there's a limited supply for each drink per week. At least it restocks every Sunday. SP recovery is hard to come by at the start of the game, so you bet I'm hoarding these. During school events, we might hear some gossip. It's one way the game can tell us of new things we can do. Today, April 25th, a bookstore is reopening in the Iwatodai strip mall. For us though, it's not a shop, it's actually a new social link. Some links don't begin right away. For this one, we have to bring a leaf from a persimmon tree. There's one in the school courtyard. I grab a leaf and show it to the old couple inside, and this unlocks the Hierophant Arcana social link. These are Bunkichi and Mitsuko, the owners of this humble bookstore, and throughout our time with them, we'll hear about the story of the school's persimmon tree and its significance to them. Not much more than that really, but I quite like the resolution at the end. I also think that the old man has very well written and charming dialogue. I give this one a 7 out of 10. I think it's about time I explored Tartarus again, so on April 25th, I set off on my first real expedition. It's time to cause some mass destruction of shadows. We start from the 2nd floor, and already I see something new. We'll find these crystals throughout Tartarus, and we can destroy them with melee attacks. Occasionally, they'll drop items we can sell. They're purely for extra money though. We also have new shuffle time mechanics. Major Arcana cards can now appear among the drawn cards. Each Major Arcana can only be received once per night. But once we have enough, we trigger Arcana Burst. which upgrades the minor arcana cards we get until the night ends. Getting Arcana Burst gets more difficult by the end of the game though, cause the number of cards we'll need will actually increase as the game goes on. But they're still worth going for because major Arcana cards have powerful effects. Card number 0 is the Fool. It gives us bonus XP from battles for the rest of the night. And number 1, the Magician, gives us a rare consumable item. I don't know about you, but whenever I spot the stairs, I don't climb right away when there's still unexplored ground. I like to explore everything. Just like another blue-haired character from another anime. As we climb Tartarus, we'll encounter gatekeepers on specific floors. The very first one we encounter is on floor 5. These are like mini-bosses we have to defeat in order to proceed. We can say beforehand, however, because these floors act like checkpoints. There's always a nearby two-way teleporter. We can use it to return to the bottom floor to regroup. And the bottom floor has its own teleporter. They pretty much act like elevators. Let's talk about analyzing enemies. We can use this to check our foes' affinities. They're hidden at first though, so we'll have to try out different attacks to reveal them. Regular enemies will also display their HP, SP, and skill set, but boss type enemies will have these hidden too. Sometimes though, there are hints to what the enemy shadows are weak to. These gatekeepers are named Ice Ravens, so fire? Yep, we got them. We get introduced to a new mechanic, shifting. If a party member scores a 1 more, we can get that extra turn to a different party member, allowing us to chain knockdowns a lot easier. This is a carryover from a Persona 5 mechanic called Baton Pass, although in this game there doesn't seem to be a damage boost when using it. As I explore, I spot a gear icon on the map. These are clocks and we can use them to fully heal our party. Note that there's also one at the bottom floor. The price is pretty steep, 7 Twilight Fragments. I use these sparingly because later on, Twilight Fragments are less abundant than healing. On floor 11, we find our next gatekeeper. Some of these gatekeeper fights can actually be quite fun, but there will be a lot of them throughout the game, so I won't cover most of them to save time. This time, it's a lion wheel flanked by what I assume are regular shadows that were weak to fire. I tried the Navi Assist for the first time in this fight. This is a handy shortcut that automatically targets enemy weaknesses. If our current persona doesn't have anything, it'll try switching personas. Or if on a 1 more, it might suggest shifting to another party member. It's actually quite handy, but sometimes it doesn't go to what you actually want to do. Come to think of it, I wonder how shifting works when we don't have direct commands enabled. I'm aware that Persona 3 on the PS2 didn't allow us to control other party members. Their AI controlled the whole game and we can only change their tactics, like all-out assault or focus on healing. That option still exists in this game, but it's optional, and direct commands are enabled by default. Personally, I like the direct controls, so I never change battle tactics. If you do try this, then let me know of your experience. I'm genuinely interested to hear about it. Every time we defeat gatekeepers, we're rewarded with treasure chests that contain unique items. Keep in mind though, most of them are locked, so save up on Twilight Fragments for these. Floor 12 is where we encounter our first rare shadow. They flee from us and can be quite difficult to catch. But one change from the old game though is that they don't disappear after some time. Also, we can now sprint, another feature in Reload. And while sprinting, our melee attack turns into a lunging slash. I found a crystal with a blue light instead of a yellow one. Is it any different? Oh, look at that! It dropped a Twilight Fragment. Nice. Floor 20 is when I start running low on resources, so I decide to avoid fights for now. If we do get into one, we can escape. Escaping isn't an instant action here, there's a delay of 3 turns. It seems to be a guarantee though, I haven't had a failed escape attempt in my entire playthrough. My exploration ends at floor 22. This is a border floor, and this is what I've been waiting for. This just means we can't go further until a certain part of the story. On non-school days like Sundays and holidays, we might receive texts from our social links at school. This is just a chance to spend more time with them, but we can't actually rank up from these. But watch out, this can completely fail if we make the incorrect dialogue choice. Personally, I never made use of this, like, at all. Maybe that's not the best choice in the long run. Since I have 6 personas now, I think it's time for us to visit the Velvet Room. We do so by entering this door to nowhere. There's one in Tartarus, and there's also another in Polonia Mall. It's here that we utilize a staple Megaten feature, fusions. Concept is simple, fuse 2 personas to create another. This is the primary way that our main character gets stronger. When we gain levels, we actually only get more HP and SP. Also, fused personas tend to be stronger because 1. The resulting persona can inherit the skills of its material, And second, this is where the main benefit of social links come in. Each persona is assigned an arcana, and fusing personas we have links for will give them bonus XP right from the start. The higher our rank, the more XP we get. So that means higher stats, but also more skills. This is why pursuing social links are important to getting stronger. We want to be close to our friends. The only limit to fusions is our base level. We can't fuse personas that are higher level than us. Still, that doesn't mean fusing lower level personas isn't worth it, because social links can close that gap, or even surpass it. Aside from fusion, we can also use the compendium from the Velvet Room. Our past personas are saved here, and we can spend money to resummon a copy of them. They retain their stats too, but we can overwrite them if we wish. One new quality of life change that I like is that when you're quick registering all your current personas, the ones that are weaker than the registry actually won't be included. Oh yeah, I haven't talked about her yet. This is Elizabeth, an inhabitant of the Velvet Room. We can think of her as Igor's assistant. She'll have more utility later. For now, she'll give us twilight fragments as we progress through the game or rank up our social links. And as I'll discover later, most of our twilight fragments will actually come from her. The twilight fragments that we find around town don't ever respawn. So, I just came from Tartarus and exhausted everyone's SP. Something doesn't feel right. I feel like I'm missing something. Now I remember. It's the fatigue system. In the original Persona 3, spending too much time in Tartarus will fatigue our party members, after which they'll require rest for I forgot how many days. We can improve our condition by sleeping in class, although those events are on the schedule so you can predict them without a walkthrough. I wasn't a fan of this feature, so I'm glad it's gone, but with it we lose the beneficial side. At times, party members will be pumped up. I'm actually not sure of the actual benefits back then. I think it's just a boost to our critical hit rate. Well, it's gone, so it doesn't really matter now. April 27th, Mitsuru asks us to join the student council. And it's here that we're introduced to Odagiri, our Emperor Arcana social link. We also meet another NPC with a portrait, the student council treasurer Chihiro. This is around the time that I realized these characters are just here for social links. No way these two dopes will ever join Seeds. Odagiri's storyline revolves around an investigation into a smoker within the school. He's using his power to coerce confessions out of students, but it's not working out so well. He'll think about the concept of justice and what punishment is appropriate for such a sin. Should the culprit's future be put in jeopardy for that one mistake? And who makes that decision? This is an interesting one for me, and Odagiri develops quite a bit by the end. I give this one an 8 out of 10. April 28th, I got my first social stat level up. We now have Courage level 2. That's enough to get us into the nightclub. I'll make sure to try that later. April 29th, the internet line is restored in the dorm. And then Junpei recommends we play a video game, Innocent Sin Online. Of course, it's based on Persona 2 Innocent Sin. When we log in, we meet a character named Maya, and he calls us Tatsuya in jest. This is our social link for the Hermit Arcana. Maya will chat with us pretty much non-stop. She's a middle-aged woman that has frustrations at work, and apparently she just lets herself go whenever she's alone at home. This one is really charming just because of how Maya speaks. Lots of emotes and RPG references. I found it to be very convincing, even though it's not voiced at all. Yeah, this is the only social link in the game that's not voiced, but that makes sense. I give it a 9 out of 10. I give it extra points because the ending is really good. We can also use the PC in the lobby now. Is this the new feature? I don't quite remember. From here, we can use items we buy in town to either browse the web or use software, and the benefits vary. We can get social stat experience, increase our maximum HP and SP, and later on, permanent changes or buffs. One such shop we can get software from is the Net Cafe at Iwatodai Strip Mall. All of these items are both single purchase and single use, so we won't be using the PC often. But oh, check it out! They have the video game Typing Ghoul. I love that game, man. Highly recommend it. On May 2nd, during the dark hour, the mysterious boy is back. He tells us of the coming full moon 7 days from now and that we'll encounter a hardship. Yeah, this is just set up for a cycle that we'll be going through for the rest of the game. May 3 is the first chance we get to tune into Tanaka's Amazing Commodities, a home shopping show on TV that only airs on Sunday mornings. They sell unique item sets and some are actually only available through the show, so we better make sure we're always ready for it. Let me check out the nightclub. There are 3 points of interest here. First, a shop that sells powerful accessories that are way too expensive for us right now. I expect we'll come back here near the endgame. Second, a hooded guy in the corner sells URL notes. We can check him out using the PC back at the dorm, and they offer permanent changes. For example, the School X site note unlocks a new item in the school bakery, lukewarm taiyakis. Lastly, there's a fortune teller. We can offer money to her to give us fortunes that'll slightly change our Tartarus expedition. The first and only option right now is the rarity fortune. It increases the chance that we'll run into rare shadows for the first few floors we explore. The fortune lasts only for the night though. If we don't visit Tartarus on the same night, we waste the benefit. On May 6th, we meet a little girl at Naganaki Shrine. It's not a social link, but first she wants some takoyaki and soda. I have plenty of sodas, but she took one that restores SP. Man, she knows her stuff. She didn't ask us to play with her. This is Maiko, our social link for the Hanged Man Arcana. Maiko's a cheerful elementary school girl that likes to play at the shrine. Sadly, she's avoiding home as much as she can, cause her parents are constantly bickering. Their divorce is also impending and she wants them to get back together. I really like Maiko's character. She tries to smile as much as she can, but she can't help but cry when she thinks about what's happening between her parents. The ending is bittersweet, but satisfying. It's one that makes me sad, but Maiko emerges with contentment in her heart. It's my personal favorite social link in the game. 10 out of 10. Oh, I almost forgot to mention these things. When we go around town, we might just see people that just stand around all day, just mumbling to themselves. If a shadow manages to attack a human during the dark hour, they'll turn into one of these. They're called apathy syndrome victims. Their numbers are on the rise too. So alas, it's May 9th and a full moon is out. The team finds a big shadow roaming in the city. Normally they just stay inside Tartarus. We set off to the monorail to intercept. It doesn't take long for things to get out of hand though. The monorail suddenly starts moving. It's not supposed to, cause electrical devices can function during the dark hour. Anyway, we charge to the front of the car and meet the boss, a huge lady shadow, so it's time to fight. But the train is on a collision course with another train, so we have a 30-minute time limit. This seems generous at first, but the shadow will actively speed up the train. It'll shave minutes off the timer, and I actually lost once by timeout. And on my second try, the main character got knocked out and...
Hey, hang in there!
Oh wow, we get a game over. So they retained that mechanic in the remake. I kinda assumed they wouldn't. Okay, note to self, protect the main character at all times. This is our first full moon boss encounter. We'll have several throughout the game, and these can be a lot of fun. It's just too bad that they're so far apart from each other. A lot of the bosses lack weaknesses, and some of them are also immune to being knocked down. We can't rely on all-out attacks to do damage here. A note about the minion Dish Shadow summons. Although they look identical, they actually have different weaknesses, and it's based on their names. With the Shadow's defeat, we stop the train just in the nick of time. Thus, the night is over. Although the boss itself was pretty weak, I'll admit the time limit had me on my toes. And with the end of the full moon operation, we complete a gameplay cycle of Persona 3. We have around 1 month of the dating sim, and its main purpose is to pass the in-game calendar. Anytime during that month, we can squeeze in Tartarus trips at night. We're incentivized to come back every month because new floors open up after each full moon. Then, in the next full moon, Cease goes out there to fight another big boss. And that's the cycle. We'll be doing this for pretty much the rest of the game. It'll only change up right at the end. On May 10th, Elizabeth summons us to the Velvet Room, and actually can't believe it's only now that we're introduced to side quests. The variety of quests are pretty underwhelming though. We can have fetch quests, fusing specific personas, defeating certain enemies, that kind of stuff, and nothing special. And some of them you'll complete by just going through the game. Some of them do have deadlines though, so we should check back often. But check this out, one quest had us get a handheld console from Junpei. It has the game Odin Cube in it. On a completely unrelated and not at all referential note, check out this art book I have here. It's for a game called Odin Sphere, published by Atlas. Actually, I'm just kidding. It's not true that these two aren't related. Just like how the main character never plays Odin Cube in this game, I've never played Odin Sphere in my entire life. It is a week before midterms, and during this time, social link options inside the school are disabled until exams are over. It's a good idea to work on our academics during this time, because if we do well on the exams, Mitsuru will reward us. Back at the dorm, we're told that the console of the dorm's command room is malfunctioning. I go up to take a look, but there doesn't seem to be anything wrong. Instead, we can watch some footage. It's hidden camera scenes that capture the other characters in the dorm in their off time. The first one we watch is of Ikutsuki while he's writing up a report and making up bad puns. Come to think of it, I do remember these scenes, but it's only now that I realize this is mega creepy, because later on we get footage from inside the bedrooms, both the boys and the girls' rooms. I'm not complaining though, some of these are pretty fun to watch. I should probably cut away now. On May 12, we have another new mechanic. We have special bonding episodes with our party members. They're not social link related, but completing them will still unlock neat stuff later on. They're denoted by these 2 exclamation marks. I'm not sure if any of these have deadlines, but some of them feel like they would. Thus, I went for them right away when they're available. We also get a chance to study with our dorm mates in the evenings during exam week. These are fun little scenes that bring out more of the main cast personalities. It's also a nice boost to our academics, especially the last night. It gave me just enough experience to get my academics to level 3. Now I'm really ready for exams. During the actual exams, after school and night activities are disabled. Every day we're presented a question. Most of them are old questions we tackled throughout the semester, but some of them have extra twists. We have to get them all right to win the Mitsuru's prize. And watch out, you don't get the results of your exams until the next school day. The final day, I think, is just a check of our academics level, and I'm not exactly sure either how it affects our exam scores. But I assume if you don't have enough, you'll do badly. I have level 3 academics, so I think I'm good. Hey look, the student council girl is here. As predicted, Chihiro is another social link, but this one we can't start right away. She's an awkward one. At first she'll turn us away, but just keep talking to her. Eventually she'll open up, and this officially starts the social link for the Justice Arcana. Chihiro is a timid bookworm. Her story revolves around her struggle with interacting with men and her lack of confidence. And assertiveness. She'll eventually be accused of a crime she didn't commit, and she'll have to muster up the strength to stand up for herself. Good character development here, but the ending's not very satisfying. I give it a 6 out of 10. We're told that Akihiko has fully recovered and ready for action. I jump straight into Tartarus to test him out. Whenever we beat a full moon boss, we get their major arcana added to shuffle time. Thus, we get the Empress Arcana. It increases the damage of our all-out attacks until the end of the night. The limit of major arcanas we can hold per night also increased from 2 to 3. And like I said, although this means more benefits from major arcanas, it also means getting an Arcana burst will take a bit longer. We also unlock new levels in Tartarus after each full moon, so that's what we're here for. And it's actually quite refreshing because the new area is visually different. And compared to the PSP game, it's also laid out differently. No longer are the corridors just straight walls. There are now curves and round pillars that can actually obscure our line of sight from roaming shadows. Also, upon reaching level 12 of the main character, our persona stock limit increases from 6 to 8. So it's level related now? I don't quite remember if it's always been this way. Next, Akihiko officially joins the party. His persona is Polydeuces. He uses electric magic, but his style is more about dealing physical bash damage. Although for me, his most useful aspect is learning Tarunda, a skill for debuffing our enemy's attack power. Just for this reason alone, he's a great pick against boss fights. You know how sometimes you find the stairs early but still have unexplored areas? Well, if we do decide to backtrack, we don't have to return all the way to the stairs. As long as we've mapped where the stairs are, a go to next floor shortcut will be added to the map screen. This also applies to teleporters. It's a nice way to save some time when backtracking, but this does become exploitable later on. From the second block onwards, we're gonna have to deal with light and dark skills. And we get the damaging versions, Koha and Eiha. But I have no doubt we're gonna have to deal with the insta-kill Hama and Mudo skills later on as well. Floor 28, we have Gatekeepers. The Heartbirds are weak to wind. My Magaru stones proved somewhat useful here. And during this fight, I was thinking of crippling them with the Dizzy status. In Persona 3 Portable, I did this by hitting the weakness of a downed enemy, and this makes them skip their next turn. Dizzying still exists in this game, but it's no longer guaranteed. It's also most likely to occur when we use basic attacks. It's still a good status to go to though, because dizzied foes are also considered down, thus helping in kicking off AoAs. Speaking of status effects, let's take a look at them now. Confuse. This forces the afflicted to skip turns, but enemies might also drop items. However, if an ally gets confused, they might throw away money instead. Charm makes the afflicted see the opponent as their ally and vice versa. They might attack and debuff allies or heal and buff their enemies. Fear might make the afflicted either skip turns or run away from battle. Poison is, well, do I have to explain this one? We just take damage after every action we take. It's particularly devastating for anyone that gets one more. Distress lowers attack power and exposes the afflicted to critical attacks, while Rage increases attack, but at the cost of decreased defense, and it locks the afflicted into just normal attacks. We also have Shock and Freeze. These can only be applied by electric and ice magic attacks. Both of them forces a turn skip, but they have a slight difference. Shock increases the chance of taking a critical hit. Freeze, however, guarantees the next physical attack is a critical. However, Freeze disappears when the afflicted is damaged. It should be mentioned that all status effects slightly increase the critical hit chance of incoming physical attacks, but the effect is greatest during distress. To combat abuse, distress is removed when damaged, even if it's from magic. Status effects can be very crippling to anything, but especially so for the player because a lot of abilities are disabled when a party member is afflicted. Because when a character is afflicted, they can't participate in shifting or all-out attacks. And if it's DMC, all-out attacks are completely disabled. They also can't unleash their ultimate attacks. I'm getting ahead of myself here a bit, so let me backpedal. Point is, status effects are good when it's on the enemy and really bad when it's on us. On floor 30, we're introduced to formidable shadows. They're signified by big red auras. They're not quite as strong as gatekeepers, but they can still be pretty tough. For example, this one here is a Hulk Hogan shadow. And damn, it has 870 HP. It's really weak to status effects though, it seems. Okay, we have a twist on floor 34. It's an empty floor aside from the two-way teleporter. This is actually just a checkpoint so we can prepare for the next two floors. A gauntlet of gatekeeper fights. This means we have to defeat 2 gatekeepers without saving in between. I think these fights are the reason why Goho M's are removed from the game, but then later in the game we'll get an alternative. I'll explain when we come to that point. For now, let's get back to the dating sim. The next Monday, we get the results of the midterm exams, and I got the highest grade. This made us a bit more popular, so we get a slight boost to our charm. What do we get from Mitsuru though? Well, here you go, a bunch of incense cards. These cards can be used either on our own personas or other party members. Speaking of cards, I should also mention the skill cards, which we mainly get from Shuffle Time. They can be used to teach our personas new skills outside of fusion and leveling up. I remember these being a rare commodity in Persona 3 Portable, but in this game there's an abundance of them. We can even duplicate them once a day at Naganaki Shrine at no cost. Apart from the incense cards, we also get a bonus gift for scoring number 1 on the exams. The Proto Choker, which gives +1 to all stats. Damn, that's pretty good at this point in the game. Note to self, always aim for number 1 on exam scores. In Persona, not in real life. I have no Mitsurus in my life. When trying to bond with someone, this text might pop up. It says, I don't think our bond will grow any stronger even if I spend more time with them. And I assume this means I had to do something special to progress because even if I spend more time with them, the bond won't get stronger. But I tried with Kazushi anyway, and in my next attempt, I got a rank up. So even if our bond won't get any stronger if I spend time with them, it can still grow stronger if I spend more time with them. The language on this is misleading. We're then introduced to gardening. Again, another feature I don't remember, so I'm not sure this is new. It's pretty simple. We plant seeds on the rooftop planters after we pick up this Twilight Fragment, and we just wait for it to grow. It takes a few days, but we don't even have to water them. Once they grow, we get consumable items that we can use during exploration and combat. We can buy seeds from this flower shop in Port Island Station. They also sell stuff we can give as gifts. In fact, we can get a variety of gifts from several shops in the game, but I only know of one instance where you can use them. Am I missing something here or what? You know, there's a shared fridge in the dorm's kitchen, though it always seems to be full. It's only on certain clearance dates that we can put something in there. The next clearance date is May 31st, which is today, and the only item we can put in there is the lukewarm taiyaki we bought from the school. If only we could use the fridge in our room, but that's broken. Maybe everyone's private fridge is broken and that's why the kitchen fridge is always full. I go back into Tartarus to get to the next border. It didn't take long for us to encounter our first enemies with instant kills. This was my first battle back and Yukari's already down. Fortunately, allies get revived at 1 HP after each battle, so we don't necessarily have to revive KO'd party members during battle. Here I am just casually fighting normal shadows and then suddenly reinforcements appeared. I think this only happens when you start a battle with 2 shadows right next to each other in the overworld. It only happened to me a handful of times throughout my entire playthrough. After beating the floor 43 gatekeeper, one of the reward chests contained a tuxedo. This is actually a costume item, it doesn't affect our stats at all. Just a cosmetic change for our characters. And it only applies inside Tartarus and Full Moon operations. This tuxedo is specific to Junpei and I'm not sure about the top hat. I don't think it suits him at all. It's June 1st, the school switches uniforms for summer season. It's mainly just a cosmetic change. We're also able to tour Elizabeth around town. It acts like social link episodes, but it's just a bit of extra lore to let her personality shine. The inhabitants of the Velvet Room have a reputation for being quite goofy, and Elizabeth is on the extreme side. In particular, she has an abundance of yen but has no spending restraint. Look at her pour 1,000,000 yen to make a wish on a fountain. For her wish, she wishes to think of a wish because she doesn't know what to wish for. Then we go to the karaoke. She sings about her master with a long nose. If you want to know more about our dates with Elizabeth, I'm sure there are other videos out there that capture all of it. Meanwhile, some students have disappeared and that's why there's a ghost story going around. Yukari is clearly scared of ghosts, but despite this fact, or maybe because of it, she wants to investigate the ghost story. When we bond with Kenji enough, he'll eventually tell us about a gourmet king. It's this fat kid hanging out at Polonia Mall. Starting a social link is a bit more of a chore. First, we have to be charming enough to distract him from his sandwich. Then we have to answer his quiz. Finally, we have to bring him food he's never eaten before. Yeah, I bet an odd morsel from the Tower of Shadows will do you good. This is Nozomi, our Moon Arcana social link. Nozomi's story revolves around him comparing himself to his late twin brother, who was highly favored over him, as well as a cult that he needs to recruit followers for. I gotta admit, initially I was quite interested in his story and how he'll change. Well, too bad that never really happens. In the end, he doesn't learn much apart from not needing to compare himself to others. The cult storyline also feels tacked on. It is the weakest social link in the game, 2 out of 10. Not quite 1 out of 10 because I gave it an extra point. His voice work is amazing, perhaps the best among all the social links in the game. We also get to spend time with Yuko after making some progress with Kazushi's link. She's our Strength Arcana social link. Yuko has one of the more fun social links in the game. It's all about coaching kids for a running competition while Yuko tries to figure out her plans for the future. I give it a 7 out of 10. Also, a mechanic I almost forgot about. We can actually boost the effects of bonding events by having a persona of the same Arcana in our stock. For example, having Valkyrie can help us get closer to Yuko. The Velvet Room Compendium is super handy for maximizing this, although it can be really heavy on the wallet early on in the game. On June 5th, Yukari reports on her ghost story investigation. 2 students have recently fallen ill for reasons unknown, thus sparking the ghost story rumor. The students had something in common. They often hung out together at the back alleys of Port Island Station. We decide to investigate the location with Junpei and Yukari. It's a bad idea as the location is known to attract delinquents. It didn't take long for them to start roughing Junpei up. But another guy steps in to save our candy asses. This is Shinjiro Aragaki. He gives us info about the ghost story. The real origin of the story is likely the disappearance of a student named Fuka Yamagishi. A familiar name because we already know she has potential. She was being bullied at school by other girls up until her disappearance. It's unknown whether she's still alive or not. It's already been a week since she disappeared. Thus, people are starting to think she's the ghost that's going after students. But not just any student, it's for revenge. Her target is her 3 bullies. 2 have already fallen ill and there's 1 left. As for Shinji, he just leaves. We'll see him again much later in the game. June 8th, the next full moon is here. Time for a C's rescue operation. Yamagishi was stuck in the school gym when she went missing, so that's our vector of entry as well. We have to enter the school before the dark hour comes. We actually get to explore the school a bit during the night. We team up with Yukari to get keys to the gym, and during the hunt our phone rings and...
My phone! Why now?
That's actually a really good shriek. I'm impressed to say the least. Also cute. The dark hour starts, and it seems entering Tartarus like this is a bad idea. Everyone's been separated, and we're so high up in the tower that Mitsuru's barely able to communicate with anyone. But as we explore, we also hear another voice. It's super clear too.
Where am I? Why am I here? Please, answer me.
After climbing 2 floors, we regroup with the boys, as well as our target. This is Fuka Yamagishi, another Persona user that will ultimately replace Mitsuru as the navigator for the rest of the game. And wow, she looks damn good in the remake. She's also another character that benefits from having a new voice actor. Her old one was almost as bad as Ikutsuki's. The team actually already knew she had potential, so Akihiko had an extra evoker ready. Fuka then detects big shadows, and it actually ambushed the girls on the bottom floor. Then the culprit for Fuka's disappearance shows up. It seems she was drawn by the shadows. Thus, Fuka summons forth her persona to protect her. A martyr of Christianity, Saint Lucia.
Persona.
Cool. It's been a while since we've watched something awesome. And apart from us, she's the only other party member that awakens to her power during a crisis. Time for battle. 2 big shadows of the Emperor and Empress Arcana. Yukari's hurt from the shadows ambush, so we're going in with just 3 party members. Fuku's ability lets us fully analyze a shadow's affinities at a cost of her SP. This is crucial for this battle as our foes only have 1 opening at a time. They can also change their weakness with the unique skill Paradigm Shift. Although Fuka joining us and her awakening feels amazing, this boss fight stinks. Perhaps the worst in the game. They don't do much damage and they're easy to knock down for all-out attacks. After 3 rounds, we've already won and the second full moon operation is over. On June 11th, Fuka's cleared from the hospital and she officially joins the team, as well as moves into the dorm. She also becomes friends with her bully. Her name is Natsuki. She's actually an okay person and legitimately tries to make amends with Fuka. She has a very minor role in the story, we won't see her much. Also, everyone now recognizes a pattern. The big shadows show up every full moon. It's happened 3 times already. Along with this, we get a new UI element right above the current date. The limit indicates how many days remain until the next full moon. In the next night, the mysterious void visits us again. He doesn't remember who he is nor his purpose. Nonetheless, he gives himself a name. Pharos, and he becomes our Death Arcana social link. We won't need to actively work on it, however. As the game goes on, it'll automatically gain ranks. Now this next part is definitely new. Ikutsuki gives us some new gear and tells us of Theurgies. Afterwards, we're forced into a Tartarus trip. Our new equipment is really just some cloth overlaid onto the old clothes, but they still look quite good on everyone. If we want to remove them, we can just equip the normal uniforms as costumes. Since Mitsuru is no longer a navigator, she can now focus on combat. Thus, we get a new party member. Mitsuru is quite versatile. Her persona, Penthesilea, has high magic stats and wields ice magic. She can also debuff enemies with Rakunda to soften their defenses. And lastly, she learns quite a lot of status-afflicting skills. If you like crippling your opponents, then she's an ideal pick. This Tartarus trip is really just to show off the newest mechanic. On the second floor we end up in, everyone gets split up. I get ambushed by a shadow and Yukari comes in for a rescue. To defeat the enemy, she unleashes her Theurgy, a big cinematic attack. It's kinda like Showtimes in Persona 5, but unlike Showtime, these are done solo by characters. From now on, everyone will have a Theurgy gauge which slowly increases during fights. We can also speed up the gauge by fulfilling certain conditions as dictated by each party member's personality. Everyone has a different condition. For example, Yukari gets a boost by using healing skills, while Junpei gets a boost after landing a critical hit. It's kinda difficult to determine how full the meter is though, cause the bars are undulating like this. They'll change color from blue to orange as it fills, so it helps a little bit, but it's still confusing. As time went on, I just kinda sorta got a feel for the gauge. Once it's filled up, we can unleash our theurgy. These usually take the form of that character's elemental specialty, and they have the added benefit of ignoring resistances. The MC's first theurgy is called cadenza. Hey, I recall that term from P3P. Yeah, it was a fusion spell. Except in that game, they were consumable items. I know why I forgot about it too. I barely used them when I played P3P. Aside from cadenza, we can also learn more theurgies by having certain personas. The first is the Jack Brothers combo from having Jack Frost and Jack-o'-lantern. They only have to be registered in the compendium to use, so there's no need to hold on to these personas. The Jack Brothers theurgy is the only almighty attack in the game that can cause a knockdown, so if you want to finish with an AoE, we can use this. Of course, I want to try the theurgies right away, so I go into Tartarus the next night. I was looking forward to seeing a new block in Tartarus, but man, I am disappointed. The new area we unlock is just the upper part of Arca, no visual change at all. Floor 47 Gatekeepers, a tower along with 2 Cupids. The tower is the main damage threat and the Cupids will buff its attacks. If you're lucky, you can try using Mudo to insta-kill the tower. I didn't manage it, but another strategy is building up our theurgy gauge beforehand and using them all for a quick victory. No shadow is safe from this tactic because theurgies naturally pierce. Aside from the combatants, Fuka has her own theurgy that builds up slowly over time. Its effect changes depending on the situation. If the part is healthy, she'll buff all of our stats. But then if we're hurt, she'll instead give us full heals and purge status effects. We're also introduced to, I think is another new feature? It's called Scouting. It can occur every time we win battles, usually the first ones on a new floor. We're given an option to let one party member scout ahead and find the stairs. Along the way, they'll pick up any treasure they can find, including crystal items. If you're in a rush, you can then use the map shortcut to go to the next floor right away. Once we climb up, we'll regroup with the scout and the next floor will already be partially filled. It's a good way to speed up our Tartarus climb a bit. Fuka also has field spells that we can use by spending SP. The first is Jamming. It applies a stealth effect on the team, allowing us to bypass shadows with no chance of being spotted. As I said, using Fuka's skills will use up her SP. We can use SP recovery items on her outside of battle, but if we go into combat with low SP on her, she won't be able to scan enemies. Floor 62 is a huge floor, and it's only now that we're introduced to the Reaper, a dangerous foe that'll come after us if we spend too much time on a single floor. The Reaper works slightly differently from the original. Shovel Time used to have cursed cards that sped up the Reaper's approach, but that's been removed. We'll find another reliable way to make him show up quickly later on. Once the Reaper's here, he'll relentlessly pursue us. Easy enough to evade though due to his slow movement, but he can now follow us upstairs through floors. We can shake him off for good by returning to the bottom floor or reaching a safe floor. Plus, he may also just stop his pursuit through stairs. If we bond long enough with the old couple in the bookstore, we'll eventually meet a foreign exchange student. This is Bebe, our Temperance Arcana social link. The only requirement to start it is Academics level 2. Bebe can simply be described as a lover of Japanese culture. No, not like that. He comes from France, and ever since coming over as an exchange student, he's been engrossed with everything he sees. But due to misfortune, he'll be forced to go home, yet he desperately wants to stay in Japan. As a character, I think Bebe is well thought out, though I think the build up to the ending could be better. I give this one an 8 out of 10. From June 16th onwards, we can hang out with dorm members at night. These are denoted by smiley faces. Besides allowing us to learn more about the characters, doing them also has some benefits. We may just acquire social stat XP or receive unique items, and it's also the only way to get more items from gardening. The bonus items we get depend on who we garden with. More importantly, hanging out enough times with a party member will unlock their combat characteristic. I'll explain more when we get them. June 17th, Fuka endorses us to the school art club, and it's here we're introduced to Keisuke, our Fortune Arcana social link. Keisuke is both a talented artist and a skilled nurse. He'll struggle to choose what path he'll pursue. Does he want to be a doctor or an artist? Circumstances will arise that will restrict him from trying both. I didn't feel anything special from this social link, it just felt meh overall. So I give it a 4 out of 10. June 18th, Elizabeth summons us to the Velvet Room and tells us of humans that get lost in Tartarus. Okay, this feature I remember. All missing persons that wandered to Tartarus will be listed in the bulletin board in front of the police station at Polonia Mall. Elizabeth will also call us whenever more are added. There's a deadline too, we have to rescue them before the next full moon, else they'll succumb to apathy syndrome. Once we rescue them, they'll leave behind rewards that we can collect from the police station. It's simple as that. As a precaution, Elizabeth will warn us when the expiry for a rescue is imminent via text messages. It's up to you if you want to go out of your way to rescue these civilians. They don't impact the rest of the game much, but later on the victims can be one of our social links, and failing to rescue them in time will break the link permanently. From June 19th on, we can start our social link with Fuka, but man, we need lots of courage to try out her cooking. Well damn, even with level 4 courage, I still can't start. We have to be badass, and right now I'm just badass by name. There's a familiar figure hanging around Polonia Mall at night. Yeah, it's the face of Tanaka's Amazing Commodities, Mr. Tanaka himself. He's our Devil Arcana social link. But to start it, we have to give him a total of 40,000 yen for investments. Tanaka's social link is all about him teaching us how the world works, specifically from the lens of a con artist. I'm not really sure how to feel about this one. His personality manages to shine through his dialogue, and it's funny that he keeps threatening to sue us if we expose him for the fraud that he is. I give it a 6 out of 10. Actually, I'm dropping it down to 2 out of 10. I'm docking 1 point for every 10,000 yen he conned out of us. Would have been okay if he returns it, but he doesn't. Another new social link, progressing through Yuko Nishiwaki's social link, will eventually inform us of a peculiar monk that hangs around at the nightclub. We need enough courage to even start talking to him. And we also have to do a side quest of sorts where we memorize drink orders from other club patrons. If we mess up, we can just try again. Afterwards, we unlock the Tower Arcana social link. The monk's name is Mutatsu. Like Tanaka, he'll teach us about life and contentment, although his view is a lot more cynical. Later on, he'll talk about his wife and son that abandoned him. Mutatsu has a unique charm of his own that stands out from all the other social links. At least I feel that way. He also has one of the more satisfying endings. I genuinely believe the change he's gone through. I give this one an 8 out of 10. As our allies level up, they'll fill up their skill set. Another change from the original is when we have an excess, the game doesn't automatically pick which skill to replace. Instead, we have to choose. It's often obvious what should be overridden, like replacing Agi with Agilao. But some characters can have more variety in their builds. For example, we can have Mitsuru focus more on magic attacks, or we can have her specialize in applying a good variety of status effects. On July 1st, I've done my 3rd cooking session with Akihiko, and we finally unlock a combat characteristic. Each party member has one characteristic, we can check the details in their tier G page, and these are unique aspects of a party member in combat. Akihiko has a buff boost, which means all buffs applied to him are slightly stronger. Later on, I unlock Yukari's characteristic as well. Healing Master reduces the SP cost of all her healing skills by 50%. This is one of the more useful characteristics in the game and makes Yukari the standout healer. The SP reduction only applies to HP healing though. Status recovery skills like Patra and Baisudi are not affected. It's July 7th and the next full moon is here. As each full moon draws near, more of the lost, that's another term for apathy syndrome afflicted, will appear around town. Their numbers then dissipate right after operations, so there's a connection here. The target is in Shirakawa Boulevard, a lover's lane of sorts. Before going out, we decide on our party, although this time Yukari's got something to prove, so she's mandatory. I'm the type of gamer that likes using every character, and generally I picked ones that are lagging behind levels. The Shadows inside Chambre de Fleurs, a sleazy hotel. This time we're up against the Shadow of the Hierophant. It likes to inflict fear with its unique skill Doomsday Doctrine. Besides that though, it's a pretty simple fight. We defeat the big shadow, but the night's not over. The party gets split up by an unknown force, then we're treated to some fan service! I guess this is why Yukari was mandatory. Not complaining, she's got good assets. By that I mean she's an excellent healer. There's another big shadow lurking in the building. To find it, we go on a side objective, breaking mirrors in other rooms. Once that's done, we find the second boss. I only have to look at it once to know it's of the Lover's Arcana. It has a tier 3 fire spell that'll specifically target anyone that's weak to fire, so watch out. Besides that, this boss is really fond of inflicting charm. I had to constantly cure my party of it, else we'll end up healing the boss. This was a battle of attrition. It took me well over 20 minutes to take it down. Right after the full moon up, exam week begins again for the finals of the first semester. There will always be events like this in between full moons that eat up days, meaning we never really have the full 30 days of free time. On July 11th, we're treated to some exposition. Yukari and Mitsuru have a connection via an accident that happened 10 years ago. It's revealed that this accident was the origin of the Dark Hour, and it was the Kirijo group's doing. Although Yukari is antagonistic towards Mitsuru for hiding these facts, with Mitsuru was a victim as well. She was the first Persona user, and she was also experimented on. A shadow spawned from these experiments, and an explosion caused it to split into 12, turning into the big shadows we've been encountering on nights with the full moon. Ikutsuki posits that if we eliminate all 12, the Dark Hour may disappear for good. We've already defeated 6, so only 6 more remain. On July 12th, I got my first maxed out social link. When we do so, we'll receive a key item that serves as a memento of our bond. It unlocks a fusion, the ultimate form of the Link's Arcana. Exams are coming up, and I was hoping to reach level 5 academics before then. To this end, I tried praying at the shrine for the first time. Here, we can get a boost to our academics by donating money. I offered as much as I could, that's 10,000 yen. From this, we get a ton of academics XP, but ultimately I didn't get the level up in time. Still, I actually think level 5 is overkill this early in the game. A new shop opens in Polonia Mall. The Mayodo Antique Shop allows us to craft items and equipment using materials we find in Tartarus. Up until now, we were finding gems but had no use for them. We can't even sell them. All items are crafted with a base material and jewels as a secondary requirement. Apart from weapons and armor, we can also craft items and skill cards. The most useful item I get from here are the Dekaha and Dekunda gems. Some materials also come from personas. They're denoted by the heart symbols in the compendium. After leveling these personas up a bit, we get the item. And a good way of getting the heart item right away is by fusing personas and leveling them up with social link bonuses. We unlock Junpei's combat characteristic. It's a critical hit boost. He has a higher chance of landing criticals, plus his criticals also do more damage. This is really nice. It directly helps his tier G buildup, as he's the only one with a condition that's RNG. He gets a tier G boost after landing a critical hit. On July 20th, summer vacation has officially started, and the Seas team heads for Yakushima for a bit of a siesta time. Of course, we get some fan service. This time it's the girls wearing bikinis. Not bad at all.
If no one seems to have claimed the umbrellas around here, do you think we can go ahead and use them?
Ooh, next up is contestant number 2, Fuka Yamagishi! Wow, Fuka, do you wear swimsuits often, or...?
What was I doing? Alright, the video. We also get to participate in an entertaining quest. The boys try to pick up girls on the beach. It doesn't end well for anyone, not even for the guy that's really popular with the ladies back home. We find some success, however, and it's here that we're introduced to Aigis, our newest party member. She'll join the dorm once the trip's over. More on her later. Apart from the fun stuff, we also get more exposition. Yukari's had beef with Mitsuru for a reason. Yukari's father was a researcher involved in the shadow experiments, and it seems he was directly involved in the explosion 10 years ago. And that's about that for the summer trip. July 25th marks the end of the first semester. A track team NPC tells us about a track meet that starts on August 2nd. It's mandatory, so that's gonna eat up our summer break time. This is also the first day we could form a social link with Yukari, but we need to max out our charm first. The final shop in the game also opens. B-Blue V is purely utility. It lets us recall old persona skills of other party members. I never had a use for this in my playthrough, but if you want to change a team member's skill, then here you go. A new member also moves into the dorm. This is Ken Amada, the youngest among everyone. He has the potential but hasn't awakened yet, so we'll come back to him. Okay, I've delayed this long enough. Time to explore Tartarus again. As with previous trips, new major arcanas are added in shuffle time, and Lovers is particularly handy. It boosts our social link bonuses during fusion until the night ends. It makes fusing personas before exiting Tartarus more worthwhile. And at last, we're treated to a new area, Yabasha. It seems to be a mix of a lab and factory. Lots of corners and harder to navigate, but it's much better lit too. Let's talk about Aigis. Although she looks human, she's actually a machine. An anti-shadow weapon developed by the Korijo group. I can only imagine why they give her a shape like that. I'm assuming her chest areas where her random access memories are. A man can dream, speculate. A man can speculate. Aigis is a physical powerhouse. She's the only party member that doesn't learn any magic attacks. Her build encourages repeated use of her physical skills as her tier G gauge builds up faster from it. She also has a unique status, Orgia mode. In the original, Orgia mode can be turned on at any time. In Reload, however, it's locked behind her tier G. Orgia mode lasts for 4 turns. It gives Aigis an attack and defense boost, but we lose control over her for a duration. Afterwards, she'll go into a unique cooldown status. Outside of battle, Aigis has a unique charm of her own. Being a machine with a personality, she is one of my favorite characters in this game and the other games she's in, like Persona Q. Her new voice actress has a different tone, however. It's much more breathy and serene and sensual. I think I prefer the old one better, but again, I'm not complaining. We get yet another new feature. Opening enough treasure chests with twilight fragments will make a big door appear right next to the stairs to the next floor. This takes us to the Great Clock, a machine that can boost 2 of our party members' level to match the MC. If you have unused party members, then this might be a nice way to make them catch up. That's not really how I roll though. I like cycling to everyone. Fuka learns this skill, Sylphied Aura, a new skill that buffs our party's defense and agility at the start of the next battle. This is good to use right before engaging gatekeepers in Tartarus, although I often just forget. So many new features, damn, now introduced to monad doors. We can sometimes find these while exploring. Inside is a linear area where we can fight a powerful shadow to receive crafting material. Also, when we win, the current and next floors are fully mapped. So besides crafting, it also allows faster Tartarus exploration. Good, because by now Tartarus is starting to feel a bit stale. Also, from here on out, we'll find a monad door past the last gatekeeper of an area. This is called a monad corridor, a more tailored optional combat experience we can tackle. And most of these fights are actually pretty fun. Our opponents utilize specific strategies and we can counter them appropriately. For rewards, we get unique items unavailable anywhere else, and at the very end of the corridor, we get major arcana turrets for shuffle time. It also acts as a key for the next monad corridor, so we have to beat these sequentially. The second fight is devious, only 1 shadow is present in the overworld, but in battle there's 3! This proved too much for me right now. I got wiped with tier 3 attacks. Okay, back to social life. We have track practice from July 27 to August 2nd. We're skipping day activities because of it. Man, July went by really fast. On July 29th, we go out on an emergency operation. Fuka detects a shadow in the shrine, but before we could get there, it was already beaten. How? Who? A dog, that's who. This is Koromaru, a Shiba Inu that's also a Persona user. He'll officially become a party member later and fight with us. I forgot about this too. Aigis can understand Koromaru. Don't ask me how it all works, okay? I'm not sure myself. What I am sure of is that the Aigis and Koromaru combo is undeniably adorable. There's a new note from the Hooded Guy and Club Escapade, and it teaches us Ambush, a buff to our sprint attacks. We activate it by running for a certain distance. A blue aura then surrounds us and our sprint attack turns into an upward slash. It ensures combat advantage regardless of where we hit the enemy, but it also can distress the enemy if we hit them from behind. August 2nd is the day of the competition, and this is where we're introduced to Mamoru Hayase, our social link for the Star Arcana. Hayase is our star athlete, no pun intended. Although he's very talented, he has money problems at home. His ultimate goal is to support his single mother in raising his younger siblings. This is another okay social link. I didn't really feel much more than that. Not bad at least, 6 out of 10 for me. August 6th, the next full moon operation is here. The mission location this time is an underground military facility, and it's here we come face to face with Takaya and Jin. They call themselves Strega, the main antagonist of Persona 3. Like us, they are Persona users, but their goals are in conflict with ours. They want the Dark Hour to stay, thus they've come to eliminate us. So Jin locks us inside the building, but that won't deter us from the mission. We follow the target deep into the facility. The shadows have possessed a tank. Time to fight Justice and Chariot. It has 2 forms, combined and separated. separated. When combined, it resembles a tank and it's resistant to all forms of attack and has very high defense. The intended way to defeat it is by making it split. Landing a tier G attack will cause the turret to detach from the body. We can then target the body that resembles the chariot or the turret that resembles justice. The turret is much easier to take down than the body, but it's also more dangerous, casting Mahama, a party-wide instant kill. We're required to eliminate both parts simultaneously because they'll revive each other. Even so, it's better to focus on the much weaker turret because eventually they'll recombine and split the damage we've dealt between them evenly. Their revive skill will also weaken with repeated use. This took me quite a bit of time to get through because a bad critical instantly KOs me. This is how quickly a fight can turn around in any Megaten game. We defeat the shadows and the full moon ends. But how do we get out of the facility? Well, we just call Ikutsuki to get us out, and that's that. For now, it's back to real life, and on August 8, Koromaru the dog officially joins Seas. He also looks a bit different. His costume is that of Function. That collar? That acts as his evoker. We'll look at his combat capabilities later. For now, we can take him out for night walks. It gives us a boost to a random social link at school, and sometimes other team members may join us. Any additional scenes with Koromaru are highly welcome, because Koromaru's a dog and dogs are charming, and the world can always do with more dog energy. On August 10 to 14, we have summer classes. We breeze through these dates completely with no free time at all, but we get a good boost to our academics throughout. On the last day, we run late again and the dark hour catches up to us while we're still outside. All of a sudden, Fuka detects a shadow and there's a person nearby. It's actually Takaya fighting a unique looking shadow. Okay, Atlas, you can't fool me. That's just the demon Abaddon. Anyway, I think this scene is new too. We engage in a co-op fight with Takaya. Though we didn't really help much, this is just a demonstration of Takaya's power. I find him to be one of the most memorable characters in the game actually. He's the standout evil guy and it helps that he's designed to look like Jesus Christ, and it's appropriate because later on he'll blab about salvation and being the Messiah. It's also worth noting that Takaya is the only persona user in the game that doesn't need the tool to summon his persona. It actually tells us a lot about his determination. Later on, we're given opportunities to get to know Takaya a bit more. These act like the linked episodes with our party members. We've already unlocked Yukari's combat characteristic, but all party members in the game actually have two sets of hangout sessions. The first with Yukari was cooking, and this time we watched a horror movie series together. Completing both upgrades the characteristic, and this further cements her as the party healer. All her healing skills now cost 75% less SP. The same will happen with all other characteristics we upgrade. Same effect, but better. On August 20th, we watch a scene where Junpei spots a girl wearing a gothic Lolita dress. He takes an interest in her, but it seems she's not interested, but that's only at first. Junpei genuinely takes interest in her art, and over time, she opens up a bit. This is Chidori. Keep her in mind because she'll be real important later. We unlock Fuka's combat characteristic next, and it seems really good. It reduces the damage taken by our party members when they're struck by an attack they're weak to. Since Fuka's always present in the background, this is a permanent buff for everyone. Back when we bonded with Maiko, we were introduced to another guy that looked sickly. It's only now on August 23rd that we meet him again in Naganaki Shrine. This is Akinari Kamiki, our Sun Arcana social link. He's the least available social link too, only being available on Sundays. Akinari, at the young age of 19 years old, is already afflicted with a terminal illness. For this, he curses his existence. But by spending time with him, he'll try to find a purpose for existing and meaning for the pain he's going through. He'll pen a children's book that depicts his view of death. From what I read online, this seems to be a fan favorite. It's the bleakest social link in the game for sure. And I'd have to agree, it's a good one. The conclusion at the end is somber but really satisfying. It's personally not my favorite though, but I'm giving it a solid 9 out of 10. With enough gardening sessions with Aegis, we unlock her battle characteristic next. It's just a boost to her physical attack damage. Yeah, that's the most basic by far. Another unlocked battle characteristic, this time it's Mitsuru's after having tea time with her. Ailment Burst increases everyone's crit rate against foes with status effects. It only applies when Mitsuru's in the party though, but it goes nicely with all these status effects Mitsuru can apply. It's too bad the analysis screen doesn't display status resistances. Fuka might give a hint sometimes, but it's only when the enemy's weak to that status. She'll never tell us what ailments foes are immune to. Okay, Koromaru is so ready for action, so it's time to take him with us to Tartarus. Again, we have new Major Arcana cards, and the Justice card is really good. It lets us pick 2 cards from shuffle time until the end of the night. It seems it's not only humans that wander into Tartarus, there's also cats. Yeah, I don't know how they get here, but they're not as urgent. We're only told about them whenever we're already in Tartarus. Rescuing them is still worth the side trip because they give Twilight Fragments. Oh hell yeah, that's a good kitty. Koromaru's not only cute, he's also an awesome party member. He's all about agility, it's not guaranteed that he'll always go first. Although he has no healing skills, his speed can actually make him a pretty good healer if you have items to spare. For offense, he has a mix of fire and dark magic, appropriate for his persona, the 3-headed guardian of the underworld, Cerberus. Koromaru is also the only party member that starts out with 2 TRGs. The first is, as per usual, a piercing dark magic attack. The second, however, is a support skill that applies a physical charge buff to everyone. Koromaru is also quite slippery, primarily because his default shoes, that is to say his paws, are better than any footwear a human can equip for evasion. He may have the lowest HP in the game, but he'll survive a lot longer than expected because foes will often just miss. His other shortcoming is that he doesn't do much damage, but he's a dog, I forgive him. Another new mechanic, we're introduced to shadows that start out with a status effect in the overworld. This also changes their behavior. For example, enraged shadows will blindly and very quickly charge forward when they spot us. We'll have to dodge their initial charge first to avoid a disadvantage in battle. Another example, when they're inflicted with fear, they'll actively run away and it's actually quite hard to catch them. But once we turn our backs, they'll try to engage. We get a few benefits from filling out the compendium. First, each time we fill 25%, we'll get a discount for future summons. And second, after getting the compendium to 30%, we get the main character's battle characteristic. Weakness boost increases the damage we do when we exploit weaknesses. As we're the most versatile character in the game that can exploit weaknesses the most, this is excellent. We also unlock a new tier G. By having both Black Frost and King Frost, we unlock King and Eye, an unblockable ice attack. I forgot that I hadn't finished the first Monad corridor, so I backtracked to it. The last time I was here, I was very easily wiped, but now I'm over leveled and I won with these. As our reward, we get the Temperance Tarot. It provides a bonus to any social stat XP we receive right after this. Plus, with this, we can challenge the second Monad corridor. On August 28th, Ken officially joins us as a member of SEAS. Yeah, just like that. He apparently awakened to his persona off-screen. This influx of party members is kinda nuts. I don't really like it, and it doesn't help that there's no fancy event in their awakening. The next game, Persona 4, fixed this problem at least. School resumes on September 1st, and with the changing seasons, we get new music. This is one of my favorite tracks in the game, and it's even better in the remake. It's also been changed, more vocals this time, and no more French lyrics. Sun shines, another day goes by. Look at the time fly, because now Aigis also officially enrolls into the school. She'll be joining us as a second year. And of course, she refuses to leave our side. While I go to rescue a civilian in Tartarus, let's check out Ken Amada in combat. Ken wields by far the weirdest persona in the game, Nemesis. Even weirder is that not once did it say stores in the entire game. Oh wait, wrong game, wrong series, wrong company, let's move on. He's got a versatile skill set. He's got light skills plus Zeo for bonus coverage, but his main strength is in his support skills. Particularly, he's the only one that naturally learns the reflex skills, Tetrakarn and Makarakarn. He's great for covering any elemental weaknesses we may have. He also learns party-wide HP healing magic. His HP and SP pool is among the lowest in the game, but that's by design. That's cause his tier G gauge only builds up faster when his SP is below half. So at the start of every trip, you'll want to run his SP down. Later on, we'll get his combat characteristic that'll help with his SP problem. He regenerates up to 10 SP per turn. Combine this with some equipment to further improve his SP regen, and he becomes quite a potent support/healer. Ken joining Seas also sets off a chain of events. On September 2nd, Akihiko meets with a familiar face. It's Shinjiro, the guy that helped us out in the back alleys. A bit of backstory here. Shinji here was one of the original 3 members of Seas, along with Akihiko and Mitsuru. But something happened that caused his departure. Someone died because of their inexperience back then. Akihiko here's been trying to convince Shinji to return for some time now, but he refuses every time. Once we mentioned that Ken had joined Seas, however, he quickly changed his mind. There's more to the story clearly. So Shinji officially rejoined Seas, which means we've acquired 3 new party members since the last full moon. It's a bit overwhelming if you ask me. September 4th, it's the eve of the full moon. Junpei meets Chidori again, and it seems their relationship is making some progress. Or is it? Junpei reveals his persona ability and claims he's the leader of Seas. Chidori then says she'll see him tomorrow, on the day of the full moon operation. And so it came to be that Junpei failed to join the team during the operation itself. He's been kidnapped. He's back at the dorm being threatened by Chidori for information. As it turns out, Chidori is the last member of Strega. Her demand is simple. Seas must cancel their mission tonight. Of course, as Junpei's not the actual leader, he's unable to do anything. Okay, so while I was getting ready for the boss, I realized whenever you're in a location where you can change up party members, instead of talking to them to rearrange your party, you can use the party menu instead. No need to walk up to your allies one by one. Very convenient, I must say. I'm not sure if other Persona games had this. Time for the boss, the Hermit Shadow. I prepared my team to withstand electric attacks cause we're given hints of its affinity beforehand. It's attached to electrical cables underground. At first, the boss will only use weak attacks, but it'll try to charge up. If it successfully charges for 2 turns, it'll use much more dangerous attacks until the charge dissipates in several turns. It's best that we cancel the charge to cripple its offensive capabilities, but we can only do so with tier G attacks. Once it gets down to low HP, it'll enter a permanently charged state, a final act of desperation. In comparison to the Justice and Chariot tank though, this is a much simpler fight. With the Shadow defeated, we set off to rescue Junpei. Chidori attempts to summon her persona to defend herself, but Junpei tackles her to the ground. The team has successfully captured a member of Strega, although Junpei is torn about the situation. Chidori will be kept in a hospital, and over the next several days, the seniors will try to interrogate her. She refuses to talk the whole time. That is, except for one condition. Whenever it's Junpei that speaks to her, she finds her voice. Ultimately, the seniors will give up and leave her to Junpei. Chidori is, as expected of a goth, inclined to death. She doesn't fear it and actually wishes for it at times. It breaks Junpei's heart to see her cut herself, and he wishes for her to live and continue drawing. Get these two on a cruise ship and ship them to the stars. I love the chemistry between these two. New to Persona 3 Reload is a storyline wherein we try to convince Shinji to resume schooling as a favor to Mitsuru. Throughout these scenes, we'll find out why Akihiko and Mitsuru are trying so hard to get Shinji to come back. They all made a promise to defeat the Dark Hour and eventually graduate together. I genuinely think it's a heartwarming story. It's also during this time that I max out my courage. We are now officially a badass. Well, thanks Shinji. Fun fact here, if we check the social link description for C's, the names are in order of joining the squad instead of the order they joined the party. So Shinji's third in the list instead of the very bottom. With our courage maxed out, I start bonding with Fuka. She's our High Priestess Arcana social link. Fuka will try to learn how to cook throughout our time with her as thanks for everyone's kindness. It's not clear to her at first how important she is and how much she contributes to the team. And that's all I have to say about it. It's nothing special in the end. I give it a 5 out of 10. But you know, Fuka in this game has been the cutest she's ever been, so I made her my girlfriend. Yeah, everyone else can have Mitsuru, she's all yours. I also recently maxed out my charm, so I decided to bond with Yukari. She's our Lover's Arcana social link. Throughout our time with her, we'll learn about her relationship with her mother and how she tends to avoid relying on others. I don't know what else to say other than that. It's a pretty straightforward social link, but it's not a bad one. Yukari definitely grows as a character by the end. I give it an 8 out of 10. Shinji might look like a meanie, but he's actually a good person. Plus, he makes for a pretty good cook. We realized this from the time we spend with him in the dorm. We also unlock his combat characteristic. Auto Bolster raises his attack and defense at the start of every fight. I haven't even tried him yet, but this sounds really good, so it's time to infiltrate Tartarus again. Okay, we finally reached the 4th block in Tartarus. Chia, or Zia, or Sia. This block resembles the interiors of a castle that glows in gold. By far, it has the widest corridors in all of Tartarus, so it's actually pretty easy to navigate. If there's a simple descriptor for Shinji, it'd have to be brute strength. He has the skill Bloody Charge, which powers up his next physical attack at the cost of HP. He might have no resistances, but he has no weaknesses either, meaning he's less likely to be knocked down. Also, Bloody Charge's HP cost is actually a boon for Shinji, as he gains a Tier G boost when his HP drops below half. I found that he could use his Tier G attack really often due to this. He'll need support to keep doing his thing though. His high endurance and HP allow him to tank hits better than any other party member, but he'll constantly sap his own HP bar. On floor 121, we're introduced to an old mechanic. Darkened floors limit our vision to just right in front of us. Everything else is pitch black. This would be really scary if shadows could ambush us, but the darkness also affects them. Shadows will never try to attack us even when we're right next to them. The real challenge of these floors is finding the exit, because the Reaper will show up really quickly here. In these floors, all breakable objects have twilight fragments in them, so we have an incentive to linger and explore. At least we can use these dark zones later on if we want to encounter the Reaper, and we will do so by the end of the game. Let me try the second Monad corridor before proceeding further into Sia. Each fight here puts us up against shadow dice. They have a unique mechanic that rolls a number, and what skill they'll use next is determined by the roll. There are 2 dice varieties, and later on, the 3rd dice will use the combined skill set of the other 2. Memorizing what skill each dice will use next is key to winning, because their options include insta-kill attacks. Defending comes in handy against insta-kills as they're counted as status effects, and a defending character will avoid all status without fail. At the end of the corridor is the Devil Tarot. It's quite useful for getting more money as it doubles the loot we get from enemy shadows and breakable objects. We're on floor 129, and it's here we're introduced to the last new feature in Persona 3 Reload's Tartarus. Occasionally, we might run into giant golden hands called Greedy Shadows, and when we do, we'll go through the whole floor in a sort of turn-based event. The shadow will flee from us and it's too fast to track. At every junction, we'll have to pick a path. Choosing incorrectly will end the chase prematurely, but once we corner it, we can take it out. In combat, the Greedy Shadow is actually easier to beat than smaller rare shadows. They seem to have a lot of HP, but they also take a lot more damage. They also have less resistance and evasion. It's always worth going for these guys because they give a lot of XP, items, and money. Regardless of the end result though, we're immediately taken to the stairs. No need to backtrack for treasure since everything's been looted either by the Greedy Shadow or by you. On floor 136, we have an interesting gatekeeper fight. 2 hands and this thing on a rocking horse called a Jotun. The hands serve as support. The white one will apply buffs and debuffs, while the black one will inflict status effects on us. It seems ideal to be rid of the hands first before dealing with the Jotun, but they're quite resilient. But check this out, we can confuse the white hand and charm the black hand. With this knowledge, taking out the Jotun first is actually an easier strategy. Once I finished exploring Tartarus, I noticed something. There are even more of the lost now wandering around town. Their numbers seem to be increasing over the passing months. Are we really helping the situation by eliminating the full moon shadows? October 1st, we're back to wearing our winter school uniforms. Boy, summer just flew by, huh? Well, not really. I've already explained most of the mechanics in the game, so from here on, we'll be focusing on this story a lot more. One thing to note though, I remember the school background music reverting back to the old one when our uniforms changed back. That didn't happen in this game though, and that's good. I prefer this track more. October 4th is our next full moon night. 2 shadows again this time, and they're just hanging out at Iwatodai Station waiting for us to beat them down. For some reason, however, Shinji and Ken are not here. The team decides to find them later. Right now, it's time to take these shadows down. The shadows are a winged animal robot and a lady on flowers, fortune and strength respectively. The strength shadow will cast a protective veil over the fortune shadow, rendering it completely intangible. We'll have to take out strength first. I remember this fight. Fortune's only action is activating a roulette wheel that can either work to or against our advantage. It might give buffs or debuffs or even do damage. The Strength Shadow is resistant to all physical attacks, so we'll have to pelt it with magic. In the original, it's the player that stops the wheel, which could actually be timed. In Reload, however, the wheel stops by itself, so now it's actually based on luck. And luck is right, I got lucky and got a concentrate buff, letting me destroy the Strength Shadow with ease. The Fortune Shadow is trivial in comparison. Victory is ours, and we've actually eliminated 11 big shadows now. Only one remain. Shinji and Ken are still missing though, and this leads us to the next scene. They've actually set a meeting somewhere else. Ken wants to talk to Shinji one-on-one about something that happened in the past. Shinji, in his inexperience back then, killed Ken's mother. And now Ken wants revenge. But this was not to be. Takaya arrives to interrupt their little meeting, and he wants blood for what happened to Chidori.
Mom.
Just what was that for? What reason could you possibly have to risk your life for this child?
Shinji!
Your companions? How very unfortunate. The fun had just begun.
It was only a month ago that Shinji rejoined SEAS, and it was all to protect Ken as repentance for his sins. And protect him he did. He takes the bullet that was meant for Ken. By the time we arrive, it's too late. Shinji uses his final breath to tell Ken to find a new reason to live. He passes away in Akihiko's hands. And this is for real. Shinji is gone. Nothing has changed from the original. Still, even for the short time we knew him, Shinji was an excellent character. Rough around the edges but nurturing deep down. So much so that he put his life on the line to protect his would-be murderer. Akihiko mourns Shinji's death, losing another person close to him. The first being his sister Miki, who was also a friend to Shinji. He could not protect them despite his obsession with gaining strength. Still, he's determined to press on. This is when our party members start awakening to more powerful personas, and the first is Akihiko. Polydeuces has become Caesar. Awakenings only have two effects though. They slightly change the elemental resistances of the character, and they also learn a second TRG. So based on this, we know Koromaru's persona has already awakened in the past. Something's different around town though. We just defeated 2 big shadows yesterday, but apathy syndrome victims remain on the streets. It seems the situation's only getting worse. After a few days, Ken returns to the scene of the tragedy. Akihiko arrives and helps him figure out his next move. And it's here that Ken's persona awakens. Nemesis is now Kalanemi, the goofiest persona I've ever seen. How do you even describe this thing? A dumbbell with legs? A sentient hourglass, maybe? You tell me. It took a while to get our last level up for our academics, but on October 8th, we finally have max social stats. You know how sometimes Sunday morning activities are skipped out of our control? That means we missed a home shopping show episode. Well, not really. The next week's show will specifically mention that they're selling the same item from the previous week. This is a nice touch, I gotta admit. We don't have to go all FOMO about it. October 20th, Natsuki's transferring and Fuka's taken by surprise by the news. They have one final talk together. Natsuki says she can relate to Fuka's troubles, and she also realizes Fuka's been growing. Of course, Fuka doesn't want her to go, but eventually she accepts Natsuki's goodbyes. And it's here that Lucia awakens into Juno. Her awakening is different because, well, she's just a navigator. So the only change she gets is a buff to her TRG. It now has more powerful effects, which we'll see later. It's Tartarus time again, and so I tackle the third monad corridor. And here you will really realize how much it sucks to have a status effect. The first fight inflicts poison on us repeatedly, so our shifting and AoE capabilities are gimped. Luckily, we can also poison them. The second fight will sap our SP just to cripple us for the next fight. But it's also here that I felt the effects of Fuka's awakened TRG. It gave the whole party a charge effect, both for physical and magic attacks. Damn, after that one, these guys went down quick. In comparison to the other fights, the third one is simple. It's just a shadow that uses powerful almighty spells. High damage, but besides that, it's a straightforward fight. At level 51, Fuka learns the Escape Route skill. This is our substitute to Goho M's. So with this, Gatekeeper gauntlets are no longer gauntlets. We can use it between Gatekeeper fights to regroup and save. Hey Atlas, I found a glitch. I just defeated the Gatekeeper, but the game thinks Ken's in our party, even though he's clearly not. The game's still acting like he is though. Everyone looks like they're talking to a ghost. As I end my Tartarus trip for this month, we unlock our 4th tier G for the MC. Fornius and Decorabia unlocks Best Friends. I don't like this one. All it does is it applies a power and magic charge buff to one party member. We can do that by other means. Let's go home to brush Koromaru. He really likes being brushed. And after we improve our brushing skills, Koromaru's really happy. We then unlock his combat characteristic. Auto Sukunda reduces our enemy's agility at the start of the fight. This means Koromaru got even more evasive. It is actually amazing in practice. November 3rd is a full moon night. The final big shadow appears. This time, however, Strega's here to intercept. It's an unavoidable battle. I'm not sure how to explain this fight. Jin runs support for Takaya, who then uses powerful magic, but Jin will also use unique attacks that target our party's weaknesses. We then realize that this is to use the tactic of shifting themselves. As each one gets damaged, they'll start using more severe attacks. So I thought it best to focus on one at a time, and it worked like a charm. After their defeat, Jin throws himself and Takaya off the bridge. Game over, Strega.
They jumped.
The big shadow is next, and since it's not really engaging us, we can readjust our party and save. The final big shadow is up the Hanged Man Arcana. It's suspended high in the air and we have to destroy statues on the ground to get it down. It's easy enough because these statues are weak to at least one physical attack and one magic element. This is also one of the rare boss fights we encounter where our enemies can be knocked down. Even the big one can be knocked down. As the big shadow takes enough damage, it'll summon more statues. It'll also occasionally use Grim Transcendence to attack 4 times in a single turn. And finally, as a desperation move, it summons one last statue that's bigger than all the rest. It's resistant to everything, so bring out our TRGs and almighty attacks. Once we win, the operation is complete. There are no more big shadows and the dark hour is no more. This calls for a celebration, but first, Pharaohs visits us again. But come to think of it, this is the first time we've seen him outside the Dark Hour. He just says he remembers everything and he says goodbye. We then reach max rank in the Death Social Link, and this lets us fuse Thanatos. Why do I have a bad feeling about this? At night, we celebrate our hard-fought victory against the Dark Hour. Mitsuru's father joins in as well. However,
Igus and Akutsuki-san sure are running late. And just look at the time. It's almost midnight. The hell?
the Dark Hour. It didn't go away. The game's not over, folks. We hear a bell ringing from a distance. It's coming from Tartarus. It's there that we find Ikutsuki and Igus. He reveals himself to be a manipulator. He's been lying to everyone all this time. He knew what will really happen when the 12 shadows are defeated. It will bring about the end of the world. He uses a modified Igus to capture everyone and orders our elimination. But this doesn't go over well. Instead, Igus frees everyone from their shackles. Amidst the chaos, Ikutsuki and Mr. Kirijo end up shooting each other, and they both pass away. Mitsuru mourns, becoming the first Persona user, taking on the responsibility of Seize. It was all to protect her father, and in the end, she failed. What's next for Seize though? Well, nobody knows. It's here that Fuga gives Yukari a final message left for her by none other than her own father. Everyone thought the birth of the Dark Hour was his fault, but it was all a lie fabricated by Ikutsuki. By seeing the truth, Yukari finds the resolve to continue. Her persona awakens. Io becomes Isis. Her new TRG is a mind charge for all allies, a counterpart to Koromaru's second TRG. What about us then? You know, the main character, JC Badass. What do we do now? Well, it's Igor that reminds us of our contract. We had to take responsibility for our actions. So the game goes on. Meanwhile, Junpei has his own struggles. Chidori seems to have grown sick of Junpei, and so she asks him to stop visiting. The implications of this will culminate later. For now, I buy white flowers for Junpei to give to Chidori. You know, just to right the sinking ship. I'm sure she'll appreciate it nonetheless. On November 9th, we get a surprise transfer student. This is Ryoji Mochizuki. He likes flirting with girls and will eventually become a friend of C's. However, he's not a party member nor a new social link. And for some reason, Aigis thinks he's dangerous. Just who is this guy? I don't remember. We're pretty late into the game, so let's discuss the last feature I haven't discussed yet. At Naganaki Shrine, apart from praying for good grades, we can also pray to improve our bonds with our friends. And it does just that, but only for one social link at a time. New to this game, however, is the dating site note. It's one of the last URL notes we unlock from Club Escapade. It works similar to praying at the shrine, but this one can be used at night. Very useful indeed. On November 17, it's time for the school trip. Destination Kyoto. Like the beach vacation, it's just an opportunity for us to learn more about each character. This time there's a particular focus on Ryoji. It's also here that Mitsuru awakens to her new persona after reconciling with Yukari and getting reassurance. They both lost their fathers to the Dark Hour after all. Penthesilea is now Artemisia, and as expected, her new theurgy is brutal towards one enemy, dealing severe almighty damage and debuffing all their stats. Very cool. On the last night of the school trip, we joined the boys for a dip in the outer hot springs. However, Junpei and Ryoji intentionally timed our entry to overlap with the girls' only time. What we didn't count for is that, oh god, it's the girls from the dorm. Now the boys are afraid we'll be executed by Mitsuru if we're found. It was inevitable. Aigis bids us farewell.
Wait! This is just a misunderstanding!
Silence! Consider yourselves executed!
It was nice knowing you.
Okay, extra comment on Mitsuru's voice. She is at her best when letting out intense lines like that. November 21 is our first opportunity to start our social link with Mitsuru. Kept us waiting, huh? She's our Empress Arcana social link. Mitsuru has led an upper-class lifestyle most of her life, and she wants us to accompany her as she tries new things. With the passing of her father, Mitsuru's future is uncertain. The Kirijo group has high expectations of her, but she clearly has reservations. Sometimes she just wants to escape it all. Although I'm personally not invested in Mitsuru's character, I think this one's great. 8 out of 10. On November 21st, we find out that Jin and Takaya are still alive. They've broken Chidori out of her hospital room and given her a new evoker. Chidori also realized that she's changed. She's now scared of dying and she doesn't like it. 2 nights later, Chidori calls us out for a final showdown. Junpei, of course, runs ahead of everyone. So we engage on a fight with Chidori, and this fight's actually been changed. Chidori could have been a genuine challenge, especially since I haven't visited Tartarus yet since the last full moon. But unlike in the original, where we actually have to reduce her HP to 0, the battle just ended after a few turns. That's too bad, I would have liked to fight her a bit more. Chidori calls for Junpei as she stops her attack, and this is where Takaya and Jin interfere. I hope you've been following the story of Junpei and Chidori, as this is where it culminates.
Junpei, look out!
Junpei.
Huh?
I'm so glad you're awake.
Chidori? Uh-huh. I thought I was.
I guess I was wrong. My fear, my heartache, I blamed it all on you, Junpei. I'd never felt that way before I met you. And for the first time in my life, I realized what I wanted.
And what's that?
I want to be with you, Junpei. Forever.
I want to be with you too.
What the hell?
But wait, if she goes as far as completely reviving someone, the cost for that would be...
Chidori!
So it worked. I can hear you. The sound of your beating heart. But that's all I needed to know. Now I can go on living in you. I'll always be with you.
Huh? Hey, Chidori! Stay with me! What the hell are you even talking about? Hey!
This is how it has to be. But don't worry. I'll protect you, Junpei. Always.
Yeah, same. I've got your back. I'll do everything I can to protect you. So come on.
This might be all I ever needed. Just being in each other's arms. It's nice.
Chidori!
I love you, Junpei. Thank you.
Chidori, you're kidding, right? Chidori, say something, please. Chidori!
This, for real, drove a wrench into my heart when I watched it, even when I already knew it was coming. I don't think I'm alone though. I'm sure there are a lot of you out there that appreciate this love story, better than Twilight at the very least. But how cool is it that both Junpei and Chidori's personas were fire-aligned? Junpei doesn't go through an awakening. Instead, after Chidori's sacrifice, Hermes fuses with Medea to form Junpei's new persona, Trismegistus. Junpei flies into a rage, and I'd do the same if I was in his shoes. This is the second character Takaya has gunned down. What a butthead. They managed to escape in the end, but this is not over. After a few days, Junpei receives Chidori's sketchbook and everyone checks that out. We open it and... well, Junpei didn't expect to find a portrait of him. It seems he was all Chidori could think of. He was quite heartbroken after losing Chidori, but now he gets his determination back. And with this comes his second Teargy, the Blaze of Life. By far, this is the coolest Teargy in the game, and it's all because of that flourish at the end. How lovely. Let's resume our exploration of Tartarus since, you know, it's still there. I challenged the 4th Monad Corridor. The first fight is against a big bull shadow. Its primary strategy is enraging the entire party and reflecting back all our physical attacks. We deal with the rage and we're good to go. Fight number 2 is unique. We're up against 2 castle shadows. Analyzing them brings up a strange result. Unlike other Monad shadows, we can see the stats on these things. They have a lot of HP and can use instant kill magic. Well, thanks for the hint, Atlas. All we have to do here is use instant kills of our own. They went down without even getting a single turn in. The last fight is a combo of a physical-oriented knight and a magic-oriented relic. Aside from that, it's another straightforward fight. Our major Arcana reward this time is the Star Tarot. It works the same as the Justice Tarot, letting us pick an extra card during shuffle time. They stack too. If we get both, we can pick 3 cards from shuffle time. We arrive at the 5th block of Tartarus. Haraba is the trippiest thus far, with glowing circles all around us. And some of the design elements look like eyes. Feels like we're inside a kaleidoscope. The paths are the most narrow they've ever been, making it nigh impossible to run past shadows without being noticed. Our MC gets a 5th tier G. Mitra and Siegfried teamed up grants us Scarlet Havoc, our only physical tier G attack. The damage output on this thing is insane, especially when we charge up. At level 64, Fuka learns her final skill. Tartarus Search fully maps the current floor. We can combo this with the navigation shortcut to essentially skip floors, though we can't use it to skip gatekeepers. It also serves a secondary purpose, and it makes sense, but I'm confused as to why they allowed it. We can use this new skill whenever we find a greedy shadow to guarantee that we'll corner it. Okay, very convenient, but then they've essentially removed a significant part of the event, making it less exciting whenever it happens. The other function is worth abusing though. We can just use SP items to blaze through floors, and by this point in the game it's a welcome option because Tartarus exploration has become quite tedious. And it's around this point of the game that I stopped playing on the PSP, so from here on out, I am treading unknown territory. December 2nd, it's a night with a full moon, but the first one without a big shadow to hunt down. Instead, something else is afoot. Aigis confronts Ryoji during the dark hour. Her memories of the past have been restored. She now knows why Ryoji is dangerous. Ryoji is a shadow made from the 12 shadows Cease has defeated. He's the 13th Arcana, Death. His arrival signifies the end of the world. Aigis already tried to destroy him 10 years ago, but he's far too strong. All she could do was seal death away. She sealed it inside a young boy who just happened to be close. And it just so happens that the young boy was us. And this also explains why Aigis wants to be close to us. Aigis once again tries to slay death, but he's even more powerful now. She fails and she gets heavily damaged. But it seems Death, Ryoji, is not hostile towards us. That's because Death, known to us as Pharaohs, was being nurtured inside us all this time. And through our social link with him, he developed emotions and became merciful. Now we enter the endgame. Ryoji informs us that a being called Nyx will soon come to initiate the fall of humankind. And it'll happen because the people wish for it. Everyone will be drawn to apathy and become lost, and society will collapse. Ryoji also claims that Nyx cannot be stopped and death is inevitable. This shocks everyone to their core. How could we be so powerless? As an act of mercy, Ryoji offers an alternative. We can kill him to wipe our memories of the Dark Hour. The end will still come, but at least we can live happy lives until then. We have until New Year's Eve to decide. During the last months of the game, there are a lot of lost in town. It really enforces that society will indeed collapse because nobody cares anymore. And even our party members are down in the dumps. Makes sense since they've just been told they'll die and there's nothing we can do about it. Now that we're here, let's discuss the theme of Persona 3, which is all about death. As the player, we're given time to get to know a character, a chance to form attachments with Shinji and Chidori. Then they perish in front of our eyes, one at a time. However tragic their deaths were, the story goes on, and we have to deal with the losses, accept them, and move on. But how do we move on from our own impending death? How do we reconcile with the thought that no matter what we do, our life, as we know it, will be extinguished? Given this, the decision to have Shinji and Chidori die is a good one, I'd have to say. Our own death, however? This one could have been done better. That's cause the threat of Nyx is only told, not shown. We're just told that Nyx is unstoppable, but it sure doesn't feel like it. The game just says, trust me bro, you can't win. In time, everyone will find the determination to fight Nyx, even though it seems hopeless. And this just gives the player even more hope that we'll just win one way or another. So how could have it been improved? Well, one idea is to trust the player into an unwinnable boss fight, as a taste of what's to come to really make the player feel powerless. There's plenty of time to squeeze it in too. The player's been accustomed to boss fights during full moon nights, but 2 of them towards the end of the game are just for exposition. We could have easily had 1 or 2 boss fights here to face some form of Nyx's deadly power. This is probably why I stopped playing back then. The endgame really feels like a slog. Tartarus is repetitive and the monthly pattern suddenly changes for the worse. I became starved of awesome boss fights. Aside from the plot, we also go through final exams at school, and for getting number 1, we're rewarded with more incense plus a phoenix charm. It fully revives the wearer once during battle, so it's perfect for the endgame. We're missing a party member. Aigis is temporarily out for repairs, but more floors open up in Tartarus, so I decide to clear it. No more new mechanics, we're just climbing now. Floor 226 is where we reach the last border of this block. I decided to challenge the Monad corridor here right away, and it had quite interesting fights for us. Fight number 1 has a book shadow flanked by phantoms. The main threat here is the book, which will spell out death as turns go by. Afterwards, it'll spam Mahama on endlessly. To win easily, I just use poison, it works on all of them. So I just defend until the book shadow dies. Fight number 2 has 5 hand shadows. All of them have different skill sets and resistances, and the black one is the most dangerous by far with its powerful magic skills. I got lucky twice here, insta-killing one of them, then reflecting a powerful magic skill to the black hand. When we beat them, we find out that they're actually based on an in-universe kids show, Phoenix Ranger Fetterman R. And with that, we fully explored Haraba. As we develop social links with girls in the game, we can make them our girlfriend, or girlfriends if that's your thing. There are some events in the game that will let you spend time with a girl, like Christmas Eve. This is the only moment in the game that I know of where I can give a gift to someone. Is that really it? No way. Can anyone let me know what I'm missing here? For Mitsuru fans out there, although her social link started late, you could still make her your girlfriend before Christmas. She's the only student that we can still bond with during exam week. I guess she's already too smart to study. Let's fast forward to December 30. Aigis finally returns. She still wants to eliminate Ryoji, but everyone else convinces her to rethink. And she really does rethink. Just like death, Aigis has formed emotions. She's acting like a human now. And this is when her persona awakens. Palladian becomes Athena. The next day is New Year's Eve and Ryoji returns as promised. It's the deadline for our decision as he'll no longer be human after this. We already know that everyone wants to fight Nyx, but it's ultimately our decision. And deciding to kill Ryoji here gives us the bad ending. It makes us jump forward to March, the last day of the school year. And as Ryoji promised, it's really as if nothing happened. Even though everyone still lives in the same dorm, they act like strangers to each other. Mitsuru makes one final speech, the credits roll, and we can start a new game plus. It's a somber bad ending, but it feels really lazy. I really wish it would have shown just a bit more. And you'll see why it's lazy by the ending. The real ending, we're not done. We spare Ryoji and then he briefs us of a new deadline. We have exactly 1 month. On January 31st, Nyx will arrive and the fall will begin. Our goal is to reach the top of Tartarus to face Nyx head on. The specialized extracurricular execution squad is no more because they have a bigger goal now. We are now the Nyx Annihilation team. Our full social link maxes out and we gain the penultimate social link, Judgment. This one levels up as we climb the final area of Tartarus. In the final month of the game, the atmosphere drastically changes. The color of the whole town is much less saturated, and there's a lot of trash around. A cult around Nyx is also gaining members, their posters are everywhere. The background music is very somber and gloomy too. On Sundays, the shopping program is capitalizing on the crisis, selling items to prepare for the apocalypse. And it's such a big hit, we can't place an order before it's all sold out. If we've been keeping up with linked episodes with our allies, they'll have their final episodes throughout this month. Concluding them unlocks new personas for fusion, just like when we max out social links. Told you it'd be worth pursuing them. Well, here we are at the final stretch, and I come to a realization. I tried really hard, but I won't be maxing out all the social links. It's pretty damn difficult to do on your first time around, I hear. Even when I knew to prioritize school social links, I failed. In the end, I'm short 8 ranks total. It doesn't help that we have one last social link, and it's with Aigis. The Aeon Arcana is an extra social link that I believe was added in Persona 3 Portable. Aigis has only recently learned to act more like a human, so her understanding of human nature still has long ways to go. And it's exactly this that we explored during our timer dirt. We tackled topics of abandonment, lasting memories, and death. It's a really good social link, and I'm not just saying that because she's my favorite character. Aigis' unique perspective brings a lot to the table. 9 out of 10. And hey, even Takaya has a final linked episode. He's actually the leader of the cult of Nyx. And of course, he calls himself the Messiah. He tells us that if we try to fight Nyx, he will show no mercy. Bring it on, murderer, I'm ready for ya. Civilians will still wander into Tartarus during this part of the game, and their deadline is before January 30th. Although I enter Tartarus to rescue them before the last day, I'll save my commentary for the end. Plus, we can't fight Nyx until January 31st. We get a scene on January 21st, and we find out that...
Chidori is... Huh? Is this a joke? Some kind of trick?
No, it's not a joke or a trick. She's currently recovering in the same hospital as before, but...
What the hell? Chidori? How is she still alive? Yeah, there she is, back at the hospital. She lost her memories though, so there's that. The game's explanation is that through Chidori's unique powers, you know, the ones that let her give her life force to save Junpei, the flowers that Junpei gave her back when she was still alive gave its life to her. It is so weird and out of left field. I was 100% not expecting this. Sure, Junpei's happy, but this kinda dampens their dramatic scene earlier. I actually think the game would be better off without it. Finally, it's January 31st. Before heading out, the team realizes something. Since we'll be getting rid of the Dark Hour, everyone might lose their memories after defeating Nyx. So just in case, we make a promise. No matter what, on graduation day, everyone will meet up on the school rooftop. Time for our last ascent of Tartarus. There's no going back now. According to the network function, everyone's average level by the end of the game is 94. Though by the time I beat the game, I'm level 89. On the final Tartarus expedition, Elizabeth offers free healing, so we no longer need the healing clocks. Let's get into the last block of Tartarus. Adama has a monochrome color scheme. It has winding roads like Haraba, but in general the floors are a bit more open. It's the high walls that prevent us from seeing very far. There are still plenty of gatekeepers that'll block our progress, but each time we beat one, the Judgment social link will rank up. This block also has the only gauntlet that has 3 gatekeepers in a row, but as Fuka can just warp us out, doesn't really matter, does it? Aigis is pretty awesome at the endgame. Her second tier G is just a powerful physical attack, but it doesn't activate Orgia mode. I think this is good because by this point, she becomes a hybrid of a physical attacker and a team buffer. She also learns the skill Insta-Heal, which immediately removes status effects at the start of her turn, so she might as well be immune to status effects. We also go through one last monad corridor, and I'll only highlight the last opponent. It's a familiar shadow that we've already seen before. Yeah, it's the Abaddon shadow we fought with Takaya. The main challenge here is doing enough damage to surpass its regeneration. It recovers 300 HP per turn. Not really a problem because I realized that physical skills are really powerful at the endgame. We can combine multiple boosts like passive amps, power charges, and buffs plus debuffs. With all those, it's pretty easy to deal over 1000 damage in a single attack. Oh, and we learned one last tier G. Loki and Susanoo unlocks Trickster. It deals massive almighty damage to our opponents, and may also inflict status ailments. Well, thanks for the not helpful tier G game. Most bosses at this point are immune to status effects, what the hell? At the end of the last monad corridor is another door. Well, we'll come back to this later. Elizabeth has an endgame quest for us. She wants us to slay the Reaper. The Shadow of the Void has nothing on this guy. His damage output is really high. If I don't debuff him, I run the risk of getting KO'd instantly. There's also no escape from getting hit with weaknesses. The Reaper has every single element. He'll use it too. Yeah, they really want us to struggle through this one. I defeat the Reaper and get my reward, but then we also unlock a final quest. This is where the last monad door earlier comes in. We can only enter if we're alone, and inside is the ultimate adversary. It's Elizabeth, the super boss of Persona 3. It's been tradition that you're able to battle the inhabitants of the Velvet Room, and they're always tough as nails. Of course, I'm not prepared, so I got owned.
Shuffling the data. Huh? Later. Save
Unfortunately, I'll have to finish this in my own time. I just don't have enough time to grind for it right now. Floor 259 is where we face our first roadblock. We face Jin from Strega. His HP locks up at certain points, perhaps to allow him time to speak and transition into the next boss phase, but it kinda sucks that he's just eating up all our extra damage. Anyway, his main shtick is that he attacks twice per turn. He's fond of exploiting weaknesses and can also throw status-inflicting grenades. At 25% health, he'll get desperate and use performance-enhancing drugs to fully heal and get a huge buff. But he also poisons himself. Although we may be able to tank the rest of the battle, we can still do damage. In the end, Jin was pretty easy. Too easy to use up Teargies on, in fact. After his defeat, he tells us of his backstory. These Strega members were survivors of the Kurijo group's experiment on orphans. All of them were forcefully awakened to their personas. Awakening in this way is unnatural, and the emerging persona is more akin to a shadow. We saw a glimpse of it once with Chidori. Her persona literally attempted to strangle her. After that's done, we still have to climb regular floors. Give me a break, I want the game to end already, so I rush to the final floor, number 263. It's here that Takaya reveals himself. After a bit of a spat about Nyx and the will of the people, it's time to fight. And this is not good for me. Takaya uses insta-kill attacks. I'm out of homunculi, so I have no insurance. Instead, I use my magic mirrors to protect the MC. Like Jin, his HP locks up at certain points. In his second phase, he uses Spirit Drain to drain all of my SP. What a pain in the ass. Later on, he'll use almighty skills. Finally, at 10% HP, he'll unleash his Teargy. His persona Hypnos does massive damage, inflicts fear, and reduces everyone's SP to 1. This would cripple us, but then I have Golden Tomato EX. I grew them in the garden with Aegis. It easily solves the team's SP shortage. I didn't have a hard time, but I did get insta-killed once. Yeah, from winning to dead in a flash. Atlas, you never change. Takaya goes down. He's still alive, but the group decides to just leave him. We have bigger Nyx to burn. At long last, we arrive at the top of Tartarus. The final boss reveals itself, a black winged being with an eyeless, twisted expression. A familiar voice speaks to us. It's Ryoji. He's the final boss, the avatar of Nyx. So, it's time to burn my dread. Let's finish this game. Nyx will go through 12 arcanas throughout the fight, each one having different attributes and behaviors. And Ryoji has it right, the arcana is the means by which all is revealed. Each arcana fight should be familiar to us. It simulates the 12 bosses that we defeated throughout the game, including their unique skills like Doomsday Doctrine from the Hierophant, and the Hangman's Grim Transcendence. Nyx's attacks are powerful enough to KO some of my party members in a single hit, so buffs and debuffs are super important. Once we go through all 12 arcanas, it's not over. The last arcana is death. Nyx mixes up his offense with all new attacks. Apocalypse reduces everyone's HP to 1%, essentially disabling physical skills for the next turn. And Night Queen is a heavy almighty attack that inflicts random ailments. Have you been saving up on Amrita showers and refresh packs? Well, now's the time to use them. It's also just now that I tried out an item that applies a charge effect. Unlike all other items though, these cannot be used on other party members. If we want to give charge buffs, we're gonna have to do it through Theurgies. After depleting Death's health bar, Nyx goes to the moon. It cracks to reveal an eye and makes a free fall towards Tartarus. Everyone in town detransmogrifies from their coffin form, and the followers of Nyx turn into shadows to strengthen it. As for us, the weight of the falling moon is so intense that we're unable to move. Takaya dies from it, good riddance. But yeah, this is it. The world's end is at hand. Nyx tells us that if only there were more like us that struggle until the end, perhaps we could be saved. All of a sudden, we're summoned to the Velvet Room, and Igor helps us realize our friends around town, our social links, and our party members, they're all rooting for us, and thus we receive the Universe card, the 23rd Arcana. The ever-moving elevator reaches its destination, and the door opens. With our newfound strength, we stand up and fly towards the moon. But we're not gonna play among the stars. It's truly the final fight, and it's against Nyx's core. It's a scripted one. Nyx does damage, but then we're saved by the power of friendship. Oh god, is this fairy tale? In the end, we use the skill the Great Seal to be rid of Nyx. We disappear and Ryoji speaks. It seems we've received the miracle we sought. The green sky shatters, Tartarus vanishes, and we come out from inside the school. As Aiga sheds a tear, Ryoji informs him that she will meet the same fate. That's not until episode Aigas though, so let's move on. We fast forward to March 4th. This is a familiar picture. Yeah, it's the same as in the bad ending. Yeah, deceased members don't know each other and seems to have forgotten everything. This is what I meant by the bad ending being lazy. All it was is just bits of the good ending. Yeah, the bad ending is bad. We get more scenes with the good ending at least. For one, we're able to view conclusions to the social links we maxed out. And the conclusion with Maya, our hermit social link, is the best among them. I love this scene, it's so adorable. We end the day by returning to the dorm and going to bed. We've been feeling quite ill as of late. There's one exception to the mass memory erasure though. Aigas remembers everything that happened, a benefit or a curse from being a machine. But eventually everyone remembers their promise. Mitsuru cuts her graduation speech short. And then everyone heads for the school rooftop. We're there first along with Aigas. She rests our head on her lap. She swears to always be by our side, to protect us forevermore. As everyone else arrives, we close our eyes one final time. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was Persona 3 Reload. After the credits roll, we can create a cleared save data and start New Game Plus. And we carry over quite a lot to make subsequent playthroughs easier, like our base level, our compendium, and all the items we've gathered. But if you're thinking of breezing through merciless difficulty on your second playthrough, think again. The only carryovers there are costumes and fusion unlocks. You really think Atlus would let you do that? Come on. But man, I'm exhausted. That was a long game. I clocked in just over 100 hours. But it was worth it, so let's conclude the video. Even with all the improvements they added, I still feel like Persona 3 is the weakest among the modern Persona games. It's the first time they've included social links, so it's also the worst here overall. The remake is very faithful, so it also carries over that fault from the original. It's also held back by the format of Tartarus. It is really repetitive, man, a real slog to go through. Its procedural generation actually doesn't help. Instead of a tailored experience controlled by design, we get a varied but generic climb instead. I think having more variety in the blocks could have helped. You can't imagine how disappointing it was to see more of the same after the second full moon. The combat changes, however, are very welcome. It makes a world of a difference from the original. In fact, I think if I tried the original now, I'd be quite shell-shocked by how different it is. Plus, I think I missed at least one more TRG from the MC. I didn't fuse any personas above level 85, so I don't know. I glossed over a lot of details about the characters. We spend a lot of time getting to know them in the game, but there's too much to fit in this video. If you want to find out more about them, I suggest you play the game, cause it's been great. I don't regret this purchase at all. I'm looking forward to episode Aigas, so I guess I'll see everyone again when that comes out. I'm also quite excited for Metaphor Refantazio. So many games, so little time. Thank you, dear viewer, for watching all the way to the end. Why not leave a like and subscribe too? I'll definitely play more Megaten games. I hope you all have a lovely day. See you next video.